Hey everyone, this is Dan with the Spiritual Underground Podcast. Going to take a minute to talk about Anchor. I've been with Anchor for a little over 2 years now, and podcasting couldn't be easier. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First off, it is free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to Anchor FM to get started. Let your voice be heard. Hey everyone, welcome to the Spiritual Underground Podcast. This is the first time you're stumbling upon this podcast. We are primarily a 12-step recovery-based podcast. I do, however, explore other ways in which people are returned to sanity. So if you're out there and have a path that's not traditional, I'd love to hear about it. I'll tell you a couple things. First one is the music wrapped around this podcast is by Darren Frank. He is my grand sponsor and a wonderful human being. And I want to give him credit for the music around this thing amongst a lot of other blessings that he has handed to me just from a simple point that he's been in my life. I have a little handyman woodworking business in New Albany, Indiana called DTM Woodwork. You can find me on Facebook and various places like that, and I'm an easy person to find. So if anything like that will fit you and I might be able to serve you, please contact me. And 12-Step Spiritual Recovery is a book by James Christopher Cone. It is, I haven't said this in a long time, but I'll do it. I like saying it this way. It is the great compendium, the magnum opus of the 12 steps. It is built for 3 specific niches as far as I can see. One of them is for people who don't fit the traditional 12-step mold. They don't have an ism such as alcoholism or addiction or gambling or anything in particular, but they would still like to maybe try out the tools the 12 steps offers. It fits those people, as I'm saying, that do not traditionally fit in 12-step fellowships. It also is great for people who maybe have been in a 12-step program for some time and need to spice it up, need just a little twist, want to go a little different angle of approach at the 12 steps. And it is for those who just, you hear this. I tried AA and it just didn't work for me. So maybe that different angle of approach would work for you too, since it's not it's the 12 steps, but it is not AA or NA or anything like that. So if you're interested in that, it's 12stepspiritualrecovery.com. It's all spelled out. You can also find links at my various places, and the book can be found on Amazon, and it is also in a Kindle version. First few chapters are I've read them and turned them into podcasts. So if you just want to get a taste of what that is, you can find those first chapters out on my podcast and get a little listen to it and see if it maybe strums your strings in a way that make you want more. It's kind of a free sample. So, in my time, I always say over and over again around here that my chronological timeline doesn't work out. And I've kind of let go of the fact that it doesn't work out, and I don't get to even when my guests want to get real hammered in on chronology, I try to push them along that doesn't really matter that much. That it was March of 2018. No, hold on, it was May. Nope, it was that. Those exact dates don't matter much. So what I'm getting at there is that the gentleman that's here with me today, I don't really remember exactly when I met him. I know where I met him, but I've got a feeling in my head that it was around this current sobriety date go around, because I bounced around for a few years and couldn't really, as I said a minute ago, it was something I couldn't really get. And I believe I met Eric on someplace around 2015 at what I would say is my Indiana home group. And I kept a home group in Indiana and one in Kentucky. I figured that was safe in case the bridges broke down. No matter what, I'd have a home group on each side of the river. If you're from around here, the Ohio River splits southern Indiana and the Louisville metropolitan area. And when you live in Indiana, you cross that river often. Made most of my livelihood on the other side of the river in Kentucky. But I met Eric in what was my New Albany home group, and we were about the same. Our sobriety dates were pretty close together. So you kind of battle buddy up a little bit to some extent when guys are at the same place that you are in your recovery. And I've always made connections with people just for that simple fact that we were both working on this thing, trying to get sober at the same kind of timeline. You know, I run into a guy in a meeting, he's got 30 years. I can't even begin to feel any kind of connection with the guy. But when he's right there at the same amount of time that I got, we'll have a lot in common. So welcome to the show, Eric.
Good to be here. I appreciate it, Dan.
Yeah, man. It's you know, as I sit with people and I do this podcast thing, you know, I always got the wheel going in my head. How come I haven't asked you before now? And that's another one of the things I have to let go of. I figured like the prayer I say before this thing starts, God's running the show. His horsepower is the one driving this, so I'm going to assume that it happens the way it's supposed to happen.
You know, I've listened to your podcast, buddy, I don't know how I came across Spiritual Underground. It had to be a Facebook, had to be your name, saw your name and face, and next thing you know, Spiritual Underground. And you're always, for me, I love going to meetings. I've got my same cluster of meetings I love going to, but you're always looking for something different, just to stay in and get your juice from this program, you know, and stay on your path. And I saw Spiritual Underground, had no idea you were involved with it. Started listening to it, and I thought, what a great way during the day when I'm in the office, I can throw that on and listen to it. And next thing you know, it became part of my routine. Loved it. And next thing you know, I'm talking to my sponsors, some sponsees, and some other people who'd reach out to me. And I said, I tell you what, why don't you give this a shot? You know, it's amazing when you get people coming in the program, let's go to a meeting. It's overwhelming because I ran from it. That's why I failed so many times. But to do a podcast like this and be able to listen to it, you know, it's not intimidating, you know, and I've leaned on it a lot with people that I've helped. And it's been great. And I've loved every podcast. I don't think I've missed too many. Yeah. You know, when we reached out the other day, I said, hold on, I'm seeing a week or two. I don't see a podcast. Yep. Something's going on here.
That's what I was getting ready to go with, is that I kind of took same way. God's running the show, and I never have had to work real hard to get guests. You know, God provides them. And then I know, you know, that Eric sent me a note seeing if everything was okay, because there hadn't been a new podcast out for a little bit, and it doesn't take me but a couple seconds to realize that's my nudge from above that says, well, why haven't you asked Eric until now? So I'm really glad you accepted that invitation. Yep. What's your sobriety date?
October 4th, 2014.
Yeah.
Yep. And,
so you got...
It's a great day coming up on 7 years, you know, and, you know, and to be honest with you, Dan, I really could care less about that. You know, people get excited about birthdays. You know, I think it's great. I'm glad I have 7 coming up versus 4 or 3 or 2. Yeah.
And we should celebrate ourselves.
I do. I love it. But, you know, yesterday was pretty exciting being sober, you know?
Yeah.
And I look forward to finishing today. And you can bet your ass that I'm going to do all I can to be sober tomorrow, you know? And so it's great. I get a coin, you know, and I get to talk to people for a few minutes when I get recognized. Hopefully I have that chance in 7 years, you know.
Yeah.
But those are great. But every day, you know, day 1 was pretty cool for me to be sober. Day 111 was pretty cool. You know, day 999 was pretty cool. Yeah. You know, and I just want to be sober one more day than today, you know.
And you know this, but me getting up there and getting that coin ain't for me. It's for the guy who's coming up on the trail behind us, and for the guys that got more time than us. You know, it's a us thing. It's part of that we. It's not an option. I get guys that don't want to. We give away monthly coins at Spiritual Underground every month.
Okay.
For 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and I like that. And I treasure my little stack that I got during my journey through there. And you get a guy that doesn't want to do it. And I said, well, how come? And they'll give me some lip service on why they don't want to do it, And that my simple answer is, that ain't for you, man. That's
true.
You get that 30-day token, man. You're getting it because there's a guy sitting out there that's got 10 days and can't imagine having 30.
I went to. I started going right before the pandemic hit. I started going to Token 3 Club, and I'll reference this in my story, but I hadn't been there in years, right? Because you're typically over to the Serenity House over over here on this side of the river, and a few other places. But long story short, I hadn't been there in years. They've moved locations,
right?
Well, went there. Well, the way they do it there is, if you have one day when you go around the room and introduce yourself, I'm Linda. I have 3 days of sobriety. I'm John. I got 96 days of sobriety. We don't do that in some of the meetings around here. I loved it. Now, at first it set me back a little bit, and I thought, because I tell you, for me personally, we all have our meetings we love going to. I love speaker meetings, so I can relate. And, some speaker meetings make me realize, man, he's had it tougher than me. Yeah. Others, I look and I'm like, we're identical. That's my story. I needed to hear that again. I'm not the only one who did those things.
Right. Yep.
But the ones that have the biggest impact, I tell you, when you go and everybody comes up and they get the various coins and we do our period of sobriety and we acknowledge that, is the person getting the 24-hour coin or token. And I look back and I can look at these people. They look lost. They don't know what the shit this program's about. They don't know what's in front of them. They have no clue if they're even going to be able to go to bed tonight without getting another drink, even though they just got this token. I've felt that way. I look that way. And in fact, when I see them, it makes me realize that's what I must have looked like.
Yep.
You look like I think I must have felt. And I actually get more juice out of seeing those people. I love seeing everybody. I love 10 years of sobriety, 40 years of sobriety. I love hearing it.
Yeah.
Right? It sets a great bar for all of us to chase after.
Yeah. That guy taking that first step.
Boy, I tell you what. And every single time I leave there and I'm like, if I had to write on a pen and piece of paper what had the biggest impact on me today for the last 60 minutes, it was so-and-so who just got his 24-hour token.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And
I'm excited. It excites me to the thinking that, this guy's he or she doesn't understand the depth of what they've just done if they will do this thing, if they will work it. Because it really does when it says in that book that you have huge rearrangements and displacements and rearrangements. It transforms people. Really does.
It's so scary what you're getting ready to go to. The unknown, uncertainty. How does this work? What does this picture look like? You have sponsors telling you this: 90 days, 90 meetings. Get a home group. I want you to call me. Get a sponsor. Blah, blah, blah. All those things obviously are they're part of the tool chest. They are. But when you're so early on, you don't know what that final picture looks like. Yeah. And I'm a see, touch, feel guy. I want to see what that picture looks like. If you show me the picture, I'll find the way to get there. At least with a lot of help. And I think you come in here and you're so overwhelmed. Your life is in shambles. And how does this whole thing of AA fit together? And it can be overwhelming. Yep.
And you come in, it sounds like people are speaking a foreign language.
Oh, my Lord.
You get to talking 12-step speak.
And
it is. It's like a different language.
Yeah. I could talk hopefully some positive things today, but the biggest part of my story is how you failed. Yeah. And I don't mind failing. I've failed in every aspect of my life, but I tell you what, failing's the greatest damn thing that you can ever do.
Yep.
It's a function of how you choose to recover from it.
Right.
Yep. I've never met a perfect person yet.
Yep.
So that tells me we've all failed. Yep. Some are just a lot better about adjusting and moving on from a failure.
Yep.
And
adapting.
Yeah. And
yep, because I don't learn anything when I do something right the first time.
Yeah.
There's no impact to that.
No, not at all.
The impact is, and that's some of the kind of funny thing about when gals come in and they stumble, which they invariably do.
Yep.
That's just part of this process to get your wheels underneath of you, get your feet under you, and you just watch people beat themselves up over stumbles, and and it can make you leave forever. Might cost you your life, but failing upward is how we do this. We stumble upward,
Well, I can't say we all. I can speak for me. I came in and out of this program several times, and I failed well before even coming in to where I had the chance to go back out inside this program because I wasn't even ready to walk through the doors the first time.
Right.
I'd failed on my own, and I was too good for this program, didn't want to understand what it is because I was obviously, in my eyes, a much better person than any of those people on the other side of the walls. And I ran in chaos for a number of years before I ever came in. And then when I came in, I faked the program. I was a fraud inside of the program as well for quite a long time. And people say you're not going to get sober till you're ready to get sober. I do believe that. You're not going to get sober till you hit your own wall. All those things are true. But I wasn't ready for a multitude of reasons. And I look back and my sponsor, about 30 days into it, I don't want to get into it till we talk to the story, but I remember about 30 days I didn't want to do the program anymore. I just didn't want to. For 29 and a half days I did. I knew that's where I needed to be. But something about day 30, I got up and did my normal routine, third cushion from the left on the couch. I got on my knees and prayed. And I honestly, goodness, I've never had God cuss me, ever. But that day, my prayer, I got half of it out, and I said, God, I just don't want to go. I just knew I was going to go back out. I knew it, because I'd been there before, And but up until I went to bed the night before, I was all in. But something hit me. I didn't want to do it. And I remember God saying, get your ass up. From now on, you're the backseat driver. I've taken the wheel. And that's not to be exotic, but that is exactly the words that I heard. And it was the first time where I could get a picture in my head that, hey, dumbass, do you realize this isn't about you? It never has been. You're not going to get sober on your own. Those rooms, those walls, and the people in between them, they're the ones that are going to help get you there. And it clicked where maybe you do need to listen to those suggestions. Maybe your sponsor is valuable. Maybe going to meetings and meeting makers make meetings, All these goofy acronyms you hear, now all of a sudden they were starting to make sense.
Yeah.
And it was the first time where I realized you're not good enough on your own to be sober. And you're not so special that you can be a one-man show and be sober. And that day, it's not to be exotic, like I say, but from that day on, it changed for me.
Yeah.
We
have these turning points, whatever they are, that and everybody remembers theirs too.
Yep.
It's when I talk about it, sometimes it feels like there's an arrogance behind it, but I know that's not what it is. It's simply just sharing what happened to me, and this is my story. Did you grow up around here?
No, I'm a Louisville guy. Well,
here,
Louisville
in the
guy.
basic Louisville metropolitan area.
Louisville, the Cliff Notes version, man.
Brothers and sisters.
Here's the story: is that born and raised in Fern Creek. My dad, great parents. Dad was a vet. Mom was always a homemaker. Took care of the kids. But before that, my mom was married previously, had 2 kids. They were about 12 years older than me.
Wow.
My dad was married and wrapping up, graduating from college, being a veterinarian. And I think that's a 8-year program. So he was a little bit later age-wise before he got out and started opening up his first practice. But he was married and had 3 daughters. When my dad came to Louisville he bought a vet practice here. My mom was on the tail end of wrapping up a divorce from her first husband. And my dad was on the tail end of wrapping up his divorce from his first wife. He put an ad in the paper and said, I need some help. I need a secretary. Well, she came in. She'd never worked before. She'd always she got pregnant early, just decided to be a stay-at-home mom. Long story short, there's some sparks that kind of started there, and they liked each other.
Yeah.
Yep. My mom was getting out of a divorce because he was an abuser. He was a womanizer, and I've heard that from his kids, from my mom's kids, sharing their experience. And my mom, he was an abuser mentally and physically. And by all definitions, from what I've been told, he was probably one of us. But I don't know that. My dad was on the tail end of the divorce just because, he for various reasons. Well, the one, and I'll tie into this later, but a unique situation is that right before they got their divorces wrapped up so they could sail off in the sunset together, my dad had a little predicament. And that was him being the stud that he was. He found out that his soon-to-be ex-wife was pregnant with his 4th daughter, and my mom was pregnant with me.
Wow.
And so what they did for the first 20 years of my life, they led The way they approached it was they led everybody to believe that I was part of my mom's first marriage.
Oh, really?
The reason they did that is they thought that guy that she wanted to get away from would have tried to throw a wrench in the divorce. So as long as he thinks I'm one of his kids,
Yeah.
that's okay. So for 20 years, that's the way it was.
Huh.
I was led to believe that was my dad. When my mom's kids visited
Boy.
them, it was just a unique thing. But long story short, 20 years later, it surfaced. We always suspected it. He was Italian. I'm certainly not Italian looking, so no one thought I was his kid. But that's what the story was.
Huh.
And finally,
That's my
about 20
story,
years
and I'm
later, it
sticking
came
to it.
clean. But I have a
That's
great...
a little stumbling block, though. I mean, we one of our, as a human being, we're trying to get a hold of our identity.
Mhm.
Who we really are,
Yeah.
and if you have some kind of thing that all of a sudden you are not who you thought you were.
Yeah, I used to call him Rick, but he was my biological dad. And even make it worse, Dan, about 9 or 10, I was with Rick all the time on our mini farm, right? We had horses and cows and quail pens and pheasant pens. We even had some goats. We weren't as country as having hens and chickens, but, that's all I knew, working out in the barn with Rick, going to his vet clinic.
Wow.
About 9 or 10, I walked in the kitchen one day and she goes, "Hey, Eric, would you love Rick?" I said, "Yeah, I love Rick." My definition of that was I'm with him all the time. I only saw the other guy who was my supposed dad when her kids had to go on visitation. I had to go with it to make the picture look good. All 3 of your kids are coming to visit you. So that went on for 6, 7, 8 years, and I hated it. And I won't go into it. A lot of abuse there, a lot of things, a lot of nasty shit that kids shouldn't have to deal with. And then I was the recipient of that. And just not a good guy.
Yeah.
And so I always loved coming back to Rick. That was my safe world. That's what I loved. And one day she goes, "Well, if you love Rick, would you like for him to adopt you?" What 8-year-old or 9-year-old knows what adoption is, right? And she described it as, well, you can call Rick your dad, and you can tell him you love him and all this. Sign me up. And most importantly, Eric, you don't have to go to that other guy's house.
Oh, wow.
Sign me up. So I did. So from that point on, they've already lied to me about who my real dad is, right? Now they've lied to me that my real dad is technically my adopted dad. So they're getting closer to the truth, But long story short, I had a great life and growing up. And we were a middle-class family. I never went without anything. My dad was big into private school. He went to Ohio State and military schools his whole life. He wrestled at Ohio State, so he was big into education first. You're a student first and foremost, and you earn the right to be an athlete. And he was my idol. I did everything with him. And I'd sneak out at night when he had a late-night emergency call to go to the vet clinic. I'd say, "Dad, can you please let me go?" And at 8, 9, 10, he'd sneak me out so my mom didn't know, and we'd hang out and do that. Come home at 3 in the morning. And my whole life was him. My mom was the ultimate cheerleader, just great. Inside of that, I wasn't close to my mom's kids because it's about a 12, 15-year-old age gap in between there. So they're on to better things in their life. My dad's kids, being from Florida, they didn't come and visit very much. Now, mind you, the one my dad concealed, he didn't tell my mom about, the last one. And the other ones just didn't come visit. So I was basically an only child, which was great for me because I got all the attention. And in my mom's eyes, I was the perfect kid, the golden child. My dad, he didn't have that belief. He'd call it like it was, But I had a great life. No alcoholism in my family. Biologically, any connection there. My mom's grandparents, no, just great grandparents, just normal run-of-the-mill grandparents. My mom and my dad's side as well. My mom and dad were the types, when it comes to alcohol, there was never beer in the refrigerator. We kept 1/5 of Maker's Mark in the hall closet that every Christmas I'd make a highball for my grandfather on my mom's side.
man.
That was it. My mom and dad would get a $5 bottle of white Zinfandel from Kroger's or whatever it was back in the day. They'd drink half of a glass, and then 3 weeks later they'd toss that almost full bottle out. That was the extent of their drinking. It was just a great life. My dad taught me a lot of... He was very big. We had 8 acres, and from about 8 or 9 years of age, I had chores to do. And that helped me a lot to where later in life with my kids, and even I could tie it into alcoholism too, but I had 4 acres to cut every Saturday before his ass got home.
The Jefferson County, Kentucky.
Yeah, Jefferson and Fern Creek. And I drove about an eighth of an acre of push mower, a riding mower, and then a big-ass 25, 30-horse Kubota. And then every other week I had to go and bush hog about 3 acres of field. But see, back in those days, that was the most amazing life in the world to me. I loved it. I loved it. You know?
I love cutting grass, man. I went to my grandparents' house and would ride their mower all day long.
Just loved it, and that was my life. My BMX bike, going across the street and playing local baseball, you know, at the Little League, and hanging out with my dad. That was really it. And, you know, I went into grade school. My dad, you know, preached grades, you know. I was always an all-A student guy, and no ifs, ands, or buts. He goes, that's your responsibility. And went to a poor man's Christian school, kind of a private school setup. When I went off to high school, loved sports. Anything with the ball I loved. Anything. And my old grade school, all we had was soccer, and I hated soccer.
Nah.
So we were either going to go to the Trinities, the St. X's, the Bishop Davids, those type schools. And at the last minute, we went to St. X, and that allowed my dad to be able to drop me off in the mornings, you know, on his way to his practice. And all I wanted to do was play sports, Dad.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to do. So I immediately started playing football. And, you know, and I'll tell you this, I can tie some of this back later, is that, you know, we all go to high school, you want to be accepted. You know, you want to fit in and you want to have friends and all that.
Be a part of.
Yep. And I went to this school. I didn't go to Catholic schools. Nobody knew me from parishes or anything like that. I'm one of 400 kids in my freshman class. I've never played organized football in my life. My dad took me out 2 weeks late to football practice and said, hey, Coach, I think I'd like for you to give my kid a chance. I made a mistake, didn't know when tryouts were during summer, blah, blah, blah. And you know that movie, what's the movie? Remember the Titans? You ever seen that movie?
Yep.
The long blonde-headed guy who comes out with his dad, and the dad goes, hey, give my son a shot. You know, I think he's okay. He's something. And that was what my dad did.
Huh.
They laughed at me. Where did you play any parish? I didn't play. Wherever you played organized football, I didn't play. And they said, let's do some agility drills and some arm drills. And next thing you know, I knew I could throw it about 60 yards. My dad and I threw football every freaking day, my whole lifetime. And I knew from our one fence to the neighbor's pool next to us was 61 yards if I could get it in the pool. So I already knew what that was. And they were bringing the upperclassmen in, you know, and I wasn't nervous because they were doing these drills. I'm like, if that's all I have to do is throw it there, I've done that a million times. And if he can only throw it that far, I've got him by 10 yards. They just haven't seen it yet. I say all this because I'm like a normal kid. I want to be accepted. I'm coming out here. I don't know any of you guys, and I'm not Catholic. I don't know a soul in this school, and I just want to fit in. The way life works is next thing you know, they saw me throw. Next thing you know, I'm playing freshman. 2 weeks later, I'm playing JV. 2 weeks later, I'm playing varsity, which apparently at that school was unheard of. Nobody comes up to varsity at that kind of football school and does it. 3 weeks later, I'm starting quarterback. I've got about an hour and a half of football knowledge under my belt.
Damn.
And next thing you know, we're going to state playoffs, and I'm doing it because the upperclassman, Jeff Houck, got hurt for our football team. And it was just by luck. And I say all that because I went from a kid who was probably insecure, wanted to fit in, be one of the boys, and next thing you know, it seemed like in no time at all, I was accepted because of that, you know?
Yeah.
So
like when no time at all, you used a superstar.
No, well, there was none of that, but you felt like you were there. And long story short is, it was great to be that side.
That's a pretty miraculous jump.
Yeah, but I dropped the ball in the classroom, and I'll never forget. I got
really?
my first midterm report. I got a 1.75. I think I was I think I was 357th on the low side out of 362 kids. I almost flunked out. My dad saw it. He goes, you'll never see the grass of a sports field. He goes, if you don't get your head out of your ass. He goes, you will go to Coach Glazer tomorrow morning and come up with a plan to sit there and correct this. You understand? I said, yep. Sure enough, I went in. And suffice to say, I didn't have that problem anymore, you know. And I was able to sail through school and St. X, and life was good. Played baseball, which was really the sport that I loved and excelled at. Never got in trouble. Didn't drink till my junior year at St. X, you know. Nothing crazy with boys. Whoever was supposed to drive that weekend, we'd sneak a cooler in the back and go drink a few beers. get them from the liquor store over there on Poplar Level Road. They'd always sell to us, even though they knew that we were 16.
Where those spots were that you could get served.
We did that. The first time, buddy, that I ever got in trouble, alcohol related, was my last week before I went off to college. I went to a last minute go away send off for all the guys, in our group that used to hang out. The parents were having a go away party. I had a couple beers, maybe 2 or 3. I know I didn't have any more than that, but for me that was more than enough. Sunday night, I was heading out on Tuesday morning to go down to WKU, where I went to Western Kentucky University. I got pulled over in my 72 Super Beetle and pulled me over, and I got a DUI. And fortunately, I didn't have to deal with the wrath of my dad, because 2 days later, I need to go off to college. If I had been in the same house with him, who knows how it would have been, He took care of it for me, and kind of thought that was behind me. I never made an association of drinking. Never had any drinking problems at all. When I went off and played baseball at the WKU, all I did was go classroom in the morning till 11, practice all night till 6 or 7 at night, studies, tutors, those kind of things, and that was the routine. I wasn't allowed to get in a fraternity. My dad said, you worry about being a student athlete this first year, and then we'll see. So I had a nice little, bookend on me. I wasn't going to get in trouble. I enjoyed looking at the girls on campus. I enjoyed being considered cool because I played sports. I played rugby as well. So I'm in the in crowd a little bit. College life's kind of smooth. I'm getting my grades. I got into a fraternity my second year. So that opens up a whole new spectrum of socializing and girls and all that great stuff. What it also did is it got my ass in trouble because I got my second DUI. And it would have been my first semester, my second year of school down there. Got my DUI, got arrested, had to put on the orange jumpsuit, had to spend the night in jail. The next morning, they put about 8 or 10 of us in a conference room, and the prosecutor said, after reviewing your record, we're going to allow each of you all to plead guilty to first offense DUI. And I thought, somebody screwed up, but let me sign. Right? And sure enough, I thought I was going to be able to keep that on the down low from my dad. Obviously, I ignored the plea deal, which was you can't drive. Obviously, I drove. Fortunately, I didn't get nailed on it. And
you weren't even drinking age yet.
Oh, no. I was a little shy of that.
Been 20 or so.
Yeah. And hell no. And so I thought I got away with it, meaning my dad didn't know it. I scrounged up some money, and I'd worked for some fraternity brother on a tree farm.
It's down there, college and all that. It's not like hometown.
And I never came home. Between ball and girls and this, that, and the other, I just never came home. Yeah. And when I did, he quietly said, so you want to walk me through what happened?
Oh, really?
Yep. And he said, I'm disappointed. My dad never laid a hand on me. But my dad had a way, have you ever known some people that they feel like they got to shout, scream, and holler to get their message across? And then there's somebody else who can sit there. They can just get their point. They carry a powerful voice, but they don't have to shout.
Well, you met one of them in there a minute ago. That's exactly as you're telling. As I sit on the other side of the table and listen to what I call bell ringers. You had two DUIs before you were drinking age. Me too. And
you
last
did?
thing,
Oh, geez.
Yeah, one was 16 and one was 19. And but I just, those were flukes, right? I just was unlucky.
Yep.
And then that same thing with Dad. I guess, looking back, I did not want to disappoint my father. He didn't need to use force or elevated speech or any of that stuff to let me know that he was disappointed in what I did.
Yep.
And there was no other punishment was needed to get my attention.
He didn't. And I remember it pretty clearly, and I think maybe in his eyes it was the first time. I don't even know if he wrote the first one off as a fluke or as a young kid being dumb, and now you got your taste of alcohol. You're smart enough because you're a Selby boy. You won't make those mistakes
and
again.
Everybody drinks a little, it's not a big deal.
I think when the second one happened, he and I talked later, and I'll tie it in here in a bit, but long story short, he clearly got his message across that I disappointed him. And so I went back to school. I got hurt again, and I had to get another surgery for baseball. Being in a small town like Bowling Green, they couldn't do the surgery. So I came back to Louisville, and they made it abundantly clear that after having this second surgery again, that probably not going to be able to play again. So it was time to forget chasing that goal, and it was just time to be a student and work on my career. So that's what I did. I enrolled at U of L. I got my surgery, enrolled at U of L. When I had my surgery, back in those days, you're talking 25, 30 years ago, you didn't have online schooling. So if you couldn't write, and I had arm surgery, I lost a semester because I can't take notes, can't do anything. So I had to make it up in the summer, and I did that. But I would basically go to school 7:30 to about 10:30 or 11. I'd go work at Foot Locker about 3 or 4 hours every day. And then I'd come home and study, and then I'd go to a routine of working at UPS Fuel and Airplanes from 11 to 2 at night. And I'd start that whole process over. Now, I fit in my Thursday nights, or Saturday nights and other nights to have my social hour because I like doing that with my buddies and doing all that. But not to where you'd ever look at me probably from the outside in and go, he's got a problem. I'd have my 1 or 2 beers. I was always the one that said, hey, you need to stop and drink some water an hour or two before. I'll drive you home. Or a lot of times I didn't drink. So I just thought I was a normal kid. Those were just really, that was bad luck over there.
Yeah.
Finished school, I graduated, got my first job in a bank, so now I'm chasing my career, And I think I was, 22-ish. My dad gave me $1,000. I built my first house because he didn't want me pissing away my money on rent. I've got a great job at a bank. Life's pretty good, I work out every day. I'm trying to chase my career, I got my friends, girlfriends. Life's pretty damn good, Not getting in any trouble. I always had my routines with my buddies. Every Friday night was Joe's Bar up in Linden, and we played golf Saturday morning, and we just had it down. Never got in a lick of trouble. And then all of a sudden, start maybe about 30, and I'm going to take us up to about age 35, because 35 where's the rubber meets the road, where my life, got out of control. Up until then, my career's taken off. I'm a senior vice president of a bank. I'm overseeing some of the largest lines of business in a bank. Man, I'm checking the boxes in my eyes. I'm just an amazing guy, right? And I got my zeros in the bank accounts are in the right spot and all this. I get to about 30, I got married. And I'm still just trying to continue to be successful in my eyes, in my career and financially and all this. And my partner and I acquired about almost 20 investment properties, single families and duplexes and fourplexes, and built a big monster home in Oldham County only to flip. Mind you, I'm a Fern Creek guy. I'm not used to these big homes. Yeah. That's not me. But I'm just doing it to continually acquire, thinking it makes sense. This is passive income. And my ex-wife now, my wife then, she loved it, right? I mean, that's an incredible lifestyle from where she came from, And I could write a check for anything. Life's great. And everybody knew me. I could rub elbows with a lot of the big wigs in the city because they knew who you were at the bank.
Uh-huh.
And life was great, And got married at 30. Segued into about 35. And by 35 now, I'm about 5 years into my marriage. I have a 1-year-old daughter at the time. And that last year, maybe around 34, best I can tell, about 34-ish, somewhere in there, I noticed I was drinking more. But I noticed that I was drinking more by hiding it. Because, it's kind of funny. You'll do shit. You're aware. It's like the kid who goes and steals bubble gum. If he doesn't get caught, there's only 2 people that know what he did. You and God.
All right.
That's the only 2 people. The only other person that could possibly know is someone you fess up to or the person who caught you. So when we do something wrong, we know we're doing it before everybody else. And I knew something wasn't right. I knew I was drinking more often. I knew when I would drive across the Jefferson County line before Oldham went wet, I knew I would make sure to stop at a liquor store in Jefferson County before I got to my house. I knew I was hiding it in my version of my workshop at the house. I had bottles everywhere. My drink of choice was vodka. And I would get the small half pints, because those were hideable. But in my head, I started around 34, 35, just realizing you're drinking more and you're hiding it. And it started escalating. And then about 35, I was working at the bank, and there's a guy by the name of Frank LaRock. He won't mind me using his name. But he was about 50 years old, and he was very vocal about being an alcoholic, working the program. He was in the office right next to me, and I heard that, and I thought, could I be one of those people? No way. Look at me. I wear a suit and tie every day. I looked in the mirror today. I think I'm good looking. I'm smart. Look at me. There's no way I can be that guy. And I went over and show you what a coward I was, but yet I was getting a taste that I might have a problem. Was I said, hey, Frank, what's this AA thing you're talking about? You know? He goes, why you ask? I said, I got a buddy of mine he sounds like you. He goes, really? Get him to a meeting. Really? Where does he go? Well, obviously, I'm asking for me, but I can't let him know.
I got a friend.
He goes, go over to Token 3 Club over in DuPont by Village 8 movie theater. I did. And that was the setup there, Dan, where they have interior tables in a circle, and then you sit on the outside around the windows and the outside walls.
Yeah.
I purposely got there 5 minutes late, because I noticed if you got there earlier on time, you sat in the middle, and then they'd go around the room and ask you to read, and you'd have to acknowledge who you were, but if you hid on the outside, you could get away.
Back row sobriety.
Yes. And I did it. And I remember showing up there, and I didn't see him. I'm like, good, he doesn't know that I came. Well, the next thing I know, he came and sat down, and I think he already knew my story without even knowing my story. He said, where's your buddy at? I said, I don't know. Maybe he's
flaked out on me.
Yeah, maybe he's like what you said, Frank. He's not ready yet. You know? So anyway, that's where I am at 35. Life's been pretty good, career-wise, life-wise, outside looking in, man, house on the hill, and all the material garbage. And in my eyes, I think I'm something. But I also know quietly, without wanting to admit it, that something's going on with this drinking. And at about 35, things started to fall off the rails for me. I had a job at a bank where I kept an office in Oldham County for the bank in downtown. And what a great setup for me, right? I can go from my house and go down the road, and I'm right there. I started rearranging all my meetings. I was far enough up the food chain where I could do that, you know?
Yeah.
I would cancel appointments with clients or meetings with coworkers or rearrange them. And here was my routine. I'd wake up every day, and I'd either hunt down the bottle that I hid the night before that I didn't finish, or I would go to one or two liquor stores right across the Jefferson County line, and I would put it in between my console and my seat, and I would do shot after shot. Probably had a pint in me before I ever got to work at 8 in the morning.
In the mornings.
And then by 10, I've kind of lost my drive to be a banker and to be responsible. And then I'd go out, hey guys, I'll be right back. I'm going to meet so-and-so. And I would go to one of 5 or 6 different big parking lots, and I would sit there and put my car in park, and I'd turn on 790 Sports Radio, and I would sit there and do shot after shot.
God damn.
And I would take a nap. And then I'd go back and set a timer on my phone, and I'd go back about an hour, 2 hours later. And I had all the excuses why I was missing meetings, rescheduling meetings, and that was my routine.
Yeah.
That was my routine.
Well, you were in a position where you could cover your tracks.
Yep. And this is where it really hit. I walked in on every Friday was all the big wigs at our bank that would meet up in LaGrange at our main office. And we went in the boardroom, and that's where we had our meeting. And I noticed that only 2 of the big wigs, the president and the CEO, were in there.
Mm.
And everybody else that I go in with, they're kind of walking the other way. Well, just so you know, I probably already had a pint and a half in me, that day. And that's not a lot for me, or other days it's normal, I don't know. But anyway, let's suffice to say I had my buzz going, and I wasn't all there. And I won't say his last name, but Alex, who I tremendously respected, and who respected me, I thought, and gave me the opportunity there. He said, Eric, I need you to come on in here, Dan, and I want to talk to you. He said, were you in an event for the bank, representing the bank last night? And I was. He goes, we heard that you were drinking a little bit last night. Oh, no, not me. No, that was wrong. Well, he knew the truth. I was just lying. And he goes, have you been drinking today by chance? No, not at all. He goes, well, what I'd like for you to do is go over to LaGrange Hospital and get a blood test. And, of course, I was devastated, right? What do? I've never been faced with this before. I've been getting away with this shit.
What do I do?
So I denied it. I refused to go there.
Oh, did you?
And I started walking in my car. I gave him my keys, gave him my cell phone, gave him everything. He followed me out. He said, if you get in that car, by the way, he goes, I've already called the police. If they see you get in that car, you're going to be arrested. And it was hitting fast. And my wife at the time, I'm sure she was, she had ideas that there's something going on with this guy because he's a different guy. Yeah. And there's drinking going on. I'm sure she found some bottles and different things. But I had to call her and say, I need you to pick me up. And by the way, I'm slurring my speech because I'm drunk. And she knows that. And by the way, I lost my job. And so I went home. And like I told you, my dad passed away 11 years ago, so my dad was still with me during all this. He didn't know about any of this. Didn't know about any of it at all. And I wasn't close to my father-in-law at all. And I resented the fact that my wife reached out to her dad, and he showed up that next morning and said, Eric, I need to talk to you. Well, you'll listen to people's message if you relate to them. You know what I mean? If you don't relate to somebody, you'll turn them off. And he's not my temperament. He might be better than me, but he's just not my guy that I'm going to go camping with, for goodness sakes. And he said, you need to get help and do this. And he was telling me the right message, but it was coming from the wrong person. And my wife at the time left and lived with him for a while. So my 2-year-old daughter at the time was with him. I'm at a loss. I don't even have a car to drive, right? And I've lost my job. And I still had my cabin down at the lake. I still had my big house on the hill. I'm still a member of the country club. I'm all this. And none of that mattered because I felt as low as I could. And but I still didn't think I was an alcoholic. In my head, just some bad luck, right? I was just drinking a little bit. What are the odds they caught me drinking that night? What are the odds they just caught me drinking today, this afternoon? I'd lied to myself that this was all bad luck.
Yep.
I didn't piece together. So, long story short, I bit my tongue and I went to JDAC. I went down there for 5 days, maybe 6 days, and I remember they went through my little ditty bag, and they threw out some cologne and some different things because that had an alcohol base to it. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I went there, and it's a 4-man room, and I'll never forget, I'm still convinced I shouldn't be here. I'm better than these people. Look how he dresses.
Yeah.
Half his ass is hanging out, and I bet that guy doesn't have a job title like I do. Oh, that's right, you don't have a job title. You don't have shit right now. And you're just like him. And so I go there, and I'm in this room, and it's for people who are dealing with drugs as well as alcohol. And I'd never been exposed to drugs before, never dealt with that, and really didn't understand alcohol. I hadn't been around a lot of alcoholics, other than maybe the guy in the mirror. And I walked into my room. We get one 15-minute break. I walked in my room to get something, and we get padlocks to put on our locker rooms, doors. Most people just have them hanging. This guy had taken all 4 of our padlocks, put them in a sock, and he put his hand on a table, and he was beating his hand to break it intentionally so he could go get painkillers down at the university. And that opened my eyes. Holy shit, what is going on? And it's a kid addicted to, the pills. I think what I did during that time is I did go to AA meetings for the first time there, basically. I'd already gone to some, at Frank's urging, but not much. Everything was regimented, and I didn't listen to him because in my head I was convinced I wouldn't want to. I just got to do this thing, get my wife off my back, get my father-in-law off my back, and I'm sure as soon as I get out, the whole city of Louisville is going to know I'm out of here, and they're going to give me another job to replace the one I lost. The counselor who talked to me, I think looking back, if I'm honest, I told him what he wanted to hear, so he would tell me what I wanted to hear,
right, yep.
Which is, you're not one of these people. You're so much better, which was a joke. He told me his exact words were this, though. I do not think by definition you're an alcoholic, but I would keep a close eye on it. I'll never forget that quote. Because you and I now, as people who are deep-breeded alcoholics, we know that you either are or you aren't, and keeping an eye on it isn't going to get the job done, So I left there with those words, convinced that I wasn't, but I was also going to prove them wrong. I'm going to go to an IOP program to follow this up for 8 weeks. So I had to go in and give them a sample every week, and I'd go to 2 days a week, 2-hour meetings each time, did that. So I've gone to your treatment.
Did you cut off the drinking?
Yeah, I'd cut off the drinking totally, and they did the P test, so they knew if you were drinking. So I went to my rehab. I got you off my back. And if you didn't want to get off my back then, I've gone to this damn 2 months of IOP, so get off my back.
Yeah.
What I did after that, and I don't know why. I really can't. I'm sure it was self-induced to get them off my back further. I didn't drink for 2 years.
Really?
Like 2 years, 25, 26 months.
I'll show you.
Yeah, and I can't tell you if I was consumed drinking then and somehow magically I just didn't. I don't know. I know I just did not at all. I went to the Bahamas. My daughter was about 5. My son was about 2. And this is where really it started taking off. Hadn't drank in 25, 26 months. And the first thing was my wife at the time, she goes, boy, you remember when we used to be able to just sit out at the dock down at the cabin and drink a beer together? She goes, I wish we could do that again. Now, she wasn't pushing it, but she did say that. And that got me going. I was like, yeah, I wish we could too, you know. Now, mind you, I've only been sober, not anything to do with AA. I just have lucked into 25 months run of somehow, some way I haven't drank. And it was doing just what alcohol says in the big book it's going to do. It's just waiting to get a hold of you. You don't know when, but if you don't work it, it's going to get you. Yep. And it was setting me up. So what I did was I thought I'm going to show her I'm a great father too. And we were on good ground at the time, right? We're on this great trip and blah, blah, blah. My son's 2, so about 12 o'clock every day he's ready for a nap. My daughter's 5 or 6 at the time. She wants to stay out at the pool. I said, you watch Jenna Ray, and then I'm going to go and I'll take Dalton back to the room for a nap. Well, that was it. But what I had already scoped out is on the way back to that 1/8 of a mile walk back to our condo or whatever, was that I passed 3 or 4 tiki huts where I can get multiple beers.
Right.
So I drink 2 or 3 along the way. He's sleeping in my arms, and I drink 2 or 3 by the time we get there. Plus, I'd take 2 or 3 up to the room. I'd have it all cleared out before she get there. She never knew. I did that for the last 4 or 5 days. And when I got back, that started. I drank beer a little bit, but I never was a beer guy. It gave me headaches. So when I quickly got back, I went right back to the vodka.
Yeah, so we migrate to our
Mm-hmm.
drug of choice.
Yep. So by now what's going on is I'm kind of convinced, this is around 38, 39, I'm convinced that I had already checked out at this time. Our marriage was really unstable. I had checked out mentally a long time before that.
Yeah.
You know, I had convinced myself that the drinking was my outlet because of a terrible, unhappy marriage.
Yeah.
I was convinced that's what it is. Look at me. I got my job back again. I got another great job, basically replacing what I had. I'm working at it every day. You know, I'm cutting the grass at our big mansion, and I'm doing all this garbage. I'm got it, but I'm starting to drink again. And so I'm about 38, 39, and the same cycle's getting ready to happen with another bank. And I was about, let me go back here. There was a lady that I dated out of college, and we dated for about a year. She had a 3-year-old at the time. We lasted about a year because I didn't want to be a father. But this was someone that I just really, for some reason, I gravitated to. And we would talk every year, every couple of years, catch up, blah, blah, blah. She was on the tail end. I reached out to her again. She was on the tail end of a divorce. I'm entering into a divorce, right? The last year of my marriage, I wasn't faithful. This lady had finalized her divorce, you know. We got back together and doing things. Here's how sad it is, though, Dan, as alcoholics, at least this alcoholic, is that I was to her, when we got back 20 years later, that same amazing guy from 20 years before. The blonde-headed, blue-headed guy who looks pretty successful from the outside, looks like he's got his shit together. People will tell you all those things. He's got a gift of gab, and I like him. What she didn't know and what I was starting to understand was, I don't know if I might be some of those things, maybe or maybe not. But more importantly, what I am is I'm getting ready to have to acknowledge that I'm an alcoholic. And this drinking thing is ruining my life. And I like you. I think I might love you. I look forward to a future, but I don't know where my life's going to go because it's getting ready to blow up fast. But you know what? Even though I like you and love you so much, I also know this as an alcoholic. I can con you. And I can try to hide this shit from you because you're so new to this story, you're not going to pick up on it for a while.
Yeah. We are the best con artists going.
And that's what happened. So I was starting to live there and finalizing my divorce. Hers was already done. She has no clue. And at the time, I was working at the bank and another bank right up until this happened. I did my same routine. Rescheduling meetings, missing meetings, doing things. And all over Oldham County, where most of my clients were, I had all my hiding spots to go drink. Doing the same damn thing. I remember exactly. It was a Friday morning, 10:31. I remember when the cop knocked on my door, on my car. Sitting there, doing shots. I probably had a pint or so. And in me already. It's about 10:31. He knocked on. He goes, "Hey, what are we doing, buddy?" I said, "Oh, just listening to sports radio." Yep, getting ready to go in the office. Got the suit tie on, right? He's got to know. Let me go. Look who I am, right? He said, step out of the car. And I did breathalyzer. And I got arrested for public intoxication. I had to stay in jail for 3 or 4 hours till I sobered up. They kicked me out. I'm thinking, this is all right. No one knows, right? My wife doesn't even know. It's 8 o'clock at night. I never get home till now anyway, right? I get home. What the bad thing was, and this is really when it went to the next level of you got a problem, is that out in Oldham County, they have their own local news channel. And my mugshot and my little story was put out there.
Oh, really?
What makes it even worse is there's a thing called Leadership Louisville and Leadership Oldham County where they take these highfalutin business owners or corporate executives, they put them in a program together, kind of like a semester on campus. And you go and rub elbows with all these highfalutin political officials and city officials, and it's a status thing. I had just graduated from that program in Oldham County, so I know everybody. And yet, a lot of the people I know are just putting my mugshot on the local TV channel.
Yeah.
So what that meant was by the very next day, my daughter had to have people when she was 6 years old come to her and go, your daddy was on TV, he was arrested. I was asked to not show up on campus for my daughter at her school. My daughter did this travel cheer kind of thing early on at that age, and I was told to not show up at that facility either.
Or come here.
And then I have a wife who realizes she's been conned, or not my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, but Stacy is starting to, I had to go home and tell her, I said, look, I quit PNC. She goes, did you really? I said, yep, I'm just ready for a change. I have all these rental properties. I'm going to sit there and I'm just going to go. I have that compensation. And then I think I'm going to go into something else. Bullshit. You just got fired for the second time in 2 years, Eric, because you're drinking and you're an alcoholic and you don't want to admit it. So I did that. I conned her for another 6 months. And then she started seeing the cycles at home. I'm hiding bottles and I'm not acting, my temperament's not the same and blah, blah, blah. And
did you get remarried?
I have not yet. But I'll tell you.
Y'all just living together?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're living together and we're trying to blend our families together and doing these things. And she's knowing that my story is not kosher, She finally knows that she loves me so much. And, we cause people to be enablers. Someone loves you. And I don't think she believed that I was an alcoholic. She just knows that I'm this today and I'm so different from this person before. But I love this person. I'm figuring out what's going on with you. She didn't go buy me alcohol and put it in there, right? She didn't do any of that stuff. She didn't enable from that perspective.
Right.
But she was smart enough to know there's something going on that I'm scared to say, I'm pointing the finger at you. What's going on? And so I'm at this point, we're arguing a lot more. Life's not as smooth as it was at home. Sometimes I'm not showing up to pick up my kids because I can't put the bottle down on a Friday before I pick them up at 6 o'clock. Those small things are happening. And then all of a sudden, she said, you need to leave. And I said, okay. And she goes, Eric, you got something going on with alcohol. And obviously so. So I went to the healing place. And I went in there and I checked in. And I thought, Dan, I was just all into this. Damn it, this is it. I'm miserable. I'm unhappy. I went in there. 22-man bunking unit is what it is. They tell you what to do, when to do, how to do it. Every second of your day. And I thought, I am a walking billboard of AA. I love this friggin' program.
I'll show y'all how to do it.
And after 5 days, I'm healed. And I'm going to hit the world. And, oh, my God, if you liked me before, wait till you see me now. And I went out there. And it lasted about 4 months. I did just some things that apparently are not very productive in terms of your sobriety. I never got a sponsor. I never worked the steps. I never opened that book up, right? I didn't do anything. And about 4 months into it, I hit my final slide. I went right back worse than ever. I was drinking probably close to a fifth a day. I'd wake up every day trembling and shaking like we all have, and I need to have that bottle or it's going to be a nightmare. And I had my rotation of 3 or 4 liquor stores. I would go and disappear from the house and live in my car for 3 or 4 days, or I'd call a buddy and go stay with him. She would try to outsmart me when I was really in bad shape, take my car keys, believe it or not, as embarrassed as I am to say. I'd get on my bike and I would go 4 or 5 miles away to where I knew a liquor store was and there was woods nearby so I could get my alcohol and go sleep in the woods. I did it multiple times. And then when I would sober up enough, the bank hadn't taken away all my rental properties. So I'd go down to some tenants and get some tenant money, get my rent money, and it'd be enough to go again. I might disappear for 4 or 5 days more. No one knew where I was at, what I was doing. So really, I have no job. I really don't even have a home, right? My life is pure chaos. It's miserable. And it came to a head really when she let me back home. And within a week, she came in, and what she found me was at the base of the steps of the basement in a pool of blood.
Oh.
I'd fractured my skull, never remember any of this, and was in I was in a university hospital for a week. Had some partial memory loss, had some brain trauma, a lot of that, and a lot of things. It took a while to get back. It took me about 6 months to feel normal again.
Wow.
And her son had to see it first. At the top of the steps, looking down to a guy who had become his father figure. He and I were as tight as my own biological children. And I made that kid see that. And I'll never forget that. To where, until we had a water leak at this house 2 years ago and had to gut the basement, that same stain, as much as we cleaned, the outline of that stain was there.
Wow.
About 30 inches wide. And I'll never forget that. And you can't make amends when you don't know how to make amends. You can't make amends and say you're sorry until you acknowledge what your problem is. And I wasn't there. Somehow I conned my way into another 3, 4, 5 months of BSing my way to live there, and it was a nightmare for her, nightmare for her kid, nightmare for my kids. I'm a terrible son. My father is passed now. I can barely take care of my mom, but she needs me. I'm pitiful there. I'm a terrible partner in Stacy's life. I'm just not the person I should be. All of a sudden one day, Stacy came to me for the second time. She goes, "I want you to leave, and don't come back until you get yourself fixed." I didn't care. I really didn't. You know, I'll go somewhere. I'm going to go in my car like I've done a million times. I'm going to go to my buddies. Yeah, I don't care where I'm going to go.
For this moment.
Yeah, you know, and I'm sitting here going, hey, I got $7 in my pocket right now. I'll find a way to con some more money. You know, $7 will get me through the night. And, you know, the way alcoholics are, we don't think long term. We just think in the next 30 seconds. What gives me a fix to make me happy? And that bottle right there is going to make me happy, and I got enough to get that in my hand. So I did. I went on about 2 weeks. I went back to my mom's. And my mom loves Eric, right? And she cannot believe Eric looks like this and acts like this, and she doesn't know how to address it. There's nothing that lady could have done for me, other than open my door and give me a place to stumble into. And that's what I did for 2 weeks to her. When I would sober up, maybe once a blue moon every 2 or 3 days, I said, "Mom, today's the day I'm going to rehab." And, "Are you really?" "Yeah, I'm going to go on down there and check it out." "No, I'm not. I'm going to leave because you just gave me $20 and I'm going to go get some booze at Rite Aid." And that's what I did. Or I'm going to go to Gray's Liquors or whatever. And then I come stumbling home at 10 o'clock. And in the meantime, her and Stacy are calling each other going, "Hey, should we sit there and call the police before he hurts himself?"
Yep. They don't know what to do with us.
So, long story short, I did wake up, and here's what happened. I did that for about 2.5 weeks, and it was fucking horrible. You know, you get to a point where you're so miserable, you don't want to live, and I felt like that. I already had told how I was going to go. I bought duct tape, I bought a hose, and I'd already figured out where I was going to go and hook that duct tape and hose up, and I was going to sit there, and I was going to put it right in the window, and no one's going to know. And the reason I wanted to kill myself that way was because I was too much of a coward to put a bullet in my head, right? And that was too messy. I didn't want anybody to have to see that. And I got to that point, you know? I think ultimately I'm too big of a coward to do either one of them.
Yeah.
You know? And I can't say it's because I'm such a badass and a zest for life that I'm just not going to do that. I just didn't. But boy, mentally, I was at that place. If somebody would have said, "Hey, here's a painless, cowardly way to leave. You want me to knock and flip the switch? Just flip it. Let's roll."
I couldn't really kill myself, but man, if I could die, that'd be a good thing.
So, you know, I woke up one day, and I remember I was at my mom's, and I said, "I'm going into rehab today." And she goes, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yep." I said, "I love you, and I'll be back." And it was one of these where it was kind of emotional, not from a tears standpoint, but I think she felt like I was being sincere. You know, he means this time. And I was really, I wanted to change. I was sick of it. I hated it. I hated to look at pictures of my kids and know that I'm not the father I should be. I hated to think how much I hurt Stacy. I hated looking in the mirror going, man, look at your business cards, man. It's got a lot of syllables, right? And look at these old checking statements. They used to have zeros. Now your zeros are on the other side, you know, and it has a negative in there. And look what you used to be. And you used to have a zest for life, and I had none of it. So I went down there, and I tell you exactly the way it worked. I went in there. I said, "Do you have a bed?" They said, "Yeah, they have 22 beds in this unit. It's like an army barracks." I said, "All right." I had parked right along the side of the building. I walked back out. And to tell you how serious I was, I went right back and said, "I'm going to finish this bottle right here because I got a little bit." I think I had half of a half pint.
It's the healing place again?
Yeah. Took a swig of it, and that's all I did. I said, if I'm going in, I'm finishing that bottle. The 30 seconds it took, maybe 2 minutes, to get that, grab my bag, and walk back in, they said, "Somebody filled your spot."
Ooh.
I went right back to my car, went in, and I said, "All right, what do I do?" So I'm just going to sleep here, and I'm going to come in the morning. I went down to Gray's Liquor, got my booze, sat there, folded the middle seat of my Expedition down, turned my sports radio on, I had blankets and pillows, slept, got my ass up the very next morning. Walked in, I said, "Do you have a bed?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "I'm here." I had already emptied all the bottles and all the shit out of my car before I walked in. I can't tell you how or why, Dan. When I walked in that door, the place smelled different. It looked different. I noticed the colors on the walls. I noticed the layout of the place. I noticed how many chairs were in the foyer. I noticed the size of the TV that we watch movies on. Everything was just in high def to me when I walked in there. When you walk down the hallway, right side's your desk with the counselors checking in. You go through a doorway, and there's your 22-room bed barracks back there. What I never noticed the first time is when you look on the left-hand side, there's about an 8x4 stretch, and all it is pictures. And when you look closer, they're all obituaries. People from roughly 80s all the way down to teenagers.
Yep.
Who I was on the path to be right where they were. And I remember going down there, and two things happened. I got one of these books before I went in, and I brought it in with me. And the guy adjacent to me was a guy 62. His name was Fred P. He looked absolutely fucking shell-shocked. This guy looked like something out of a Land's End magazine. You know? You could tell he had a 30-year corporate career, probably was the CEO of the company, dressed to the nines, and he's sitting in here shaking and scared to death. And he's around drug addicts, you know, because there's a lot of those in there and a bunch of me's in there. And I said, "Hey, what's going on with you?" "My wife's left me, and my life's just in shambles. I don't know what to do." And he was the first person, like we talked about earlier. I saw him. I saw me and him.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sober yet. But I'm like, holy shit, that must be what I look like in human form. Because you're lost and so am I. And I told him, I said, "I've been in here before. Here's the way it is and the layout and all that." And I kind of tried to chaperone him a little bit. But I tell you, something just took over me. I wanted to be sober. I fucking knew I wanted it. I mean, as fiercely as I'm saying it now, it's just like all of a sudden it kicked in. Eric, it is time to be sober. It is time to sit there and quit pissing away your life. It is over. And we had to get up at 6 o'clock every morning, take showers, and then every hour was accounted for. I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I didn't have to go and try to fight for a shower with anybody. But more importantly, I'd go out to one of these 3 tables. And I had the top left table that I liked out there. And I went through this big book, and I went through probably literally 4 or 5 highlighters over 4 days. And I had never read this front to back. Never in my life. Didn't know shit about this book. And I started reading, and I could go and get to page 72, and holy shit, that ties back into page 11. Let me go back there. Now that's making sense. And I go to page 116, and oh shit, that ties in. Oh, this one page says it's actually a disease, and it would talk about the chemical imbalance in your brain, and the predisposition, and the mental obsession to drink. Holy shit, this is a disease. You might have this thing. And I started reading it. And I had notes. I went through 2 notes. I was 2 pages shy going through 2 full notebooks of my notes.
Damn.
Tying all this shit in. On the 3rd day, the counselor came and he goes, "What the hell's your story?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I just want to be sober. And I'm lost." He goes, "You seem like you're legit." I said, I've been in here before. I've lost everything. And he goes, "You stay right here." He brought somebody back. And his name was Taven C. But he's a white guy. It didn't sound like that, you know, but he's a white guy. Came in and he said, "I'm a counselor here. And he goes, I run our 365 program down here for men who make a commitment to a 1-year stay. And he goes, I want you to shadow me. Well, normally you don't do that. I mean, you follow the process every hour of the day. You go to meetings and classes and this and that. And he said, we don't typically do this. He goes, but I'll know if you're legit here a little bit. So I followed what he did, normal routine. He would sit there and meet with various men and gentlemen who were in the men's side of the wing, and we'd do it. And then he just started telling me a story. And at times his story was tenfold worse than mine. And other times it wasn't quite as bad as mine. And I could relate on both sides. And then he talked about how he hadn't seen his kids in 6 months because he's not the father he should be. And that hit home. And we started sharing more and more, and I never opened up. I don't like opening up. I don't want you to know. I want you to think I'm a pretty neat guy, pretty special guy. But I want you to know my skeletons and my faults. I need to keep those closest to me. And I started opening up to him. And finally one day he looked me in the eyes. He goes, you know what, can I tell you something? He goes, yeah. He goes, I've never known somebody who stays sober who's a bullshitter. He goes, so until you want to be honest about your issues in your life, he goes, no other fellow sober alcoholic's going to be able to help you, son. And it started clicking. If I keep trying to put on a show and not revealing who I am, my problems, and who I really am, I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
And I started talking to him. Long story short, Dan, is I went through 5 days, and after 5 days, he came up, he goes, you want this. He goes, and I believe in you. He goes, if not, I'd ask you to stay longer. Now, what I had done is about 3 weeks before I went in there, I'd asked Mark to be my sponsor. And obviously I disappeared for 3 weeks drinking, you know. Mm-hmm. He thought I'd disappeared off the face of the earth. I got out at 5:05. I remember exactly what it said on my watch. Got out 5:05, and I'm like, I knew I wanted to be sober. It was a totally different feeling than before. Different than JDAC, different being there the first go-around. And but I didn't know what to do. So I went to McDonald's by myself, got a hash brown. I called Stacy up, and I said, would you talk to me? She's obviously very cold to me, you know, and obviously apprehensive and not trusting. And but I was okay with that, because honestly, in my heart of hearts, I'm like, that's okay. Because if you just give me a chance, I tell you what, you're going to see that this is legit. Because there's some good shit's going to happen down the road. Because I'm all in on this. This is different than before, and I knew that. I felt it. I didn't know how to do it, but I knew I had the juice in me. I wanted it. And I went to that first meeting with Mark. I walked up to him, and I said, hey, I asked you to be my sponsor about 3 weeks ago. He said, I never thought you would have made it. I said, well, I'm in it. What do I need to do? And at first 3 or 4 weeks, you know, we went through steps 1 through 3, which are pretty easy steps. We know, you know, it seems like the rubber meeting the road to me is step 4 and 5, and really start clicking, you know. And everything was fine up until, like I shared with you earlier, day 30. I just woke up one day and I didn't want to do it anymore. So I went from wanting it all in to I just didn't. But 30 seconds later, it's like God was saying, he goes, no, this is how it works, man. I'm driving. I'm the lead driver. You're just a passenger on this ride. That's sobriety. And after that, things started to take shape. You know, I called Mark every day as he suggested, which I hated.
Yeah.
I didn't like going to meetings every day, and I didn't do it every day, but I went to a lot of them. I didn't like staying at meetings early or leaving late. Yeah. I just wanted to get in and out. I actually hated going to meetings for the first couple of months. I would go there and had an attitude that, holy shit, so-and-so is going to talk no matter what the topic is. Yeah. I can't stand them. And then all of a sudden, things started changing. I look forward to going to a meeting. I felt better when I would leave a meeting than when I went there, you know. And I started looking at people differently, you know. I started realizing, man, people come up and put their hands on you and want to shake your hand. They want to put their arms around you and ask how you're doing. The VIP table, if you go into the clubhouse there, not the Token Club, but the Serenity House, if you're looking up at the podium, the back left table over here, I always called that the VIP table, because when I first went there, they were always so happy and smiling. Made me sick. You know, how in the hell are they so damn happy here? Yeah. And then I realized, I thought, I kind of want to be like those guys, you know. And so we started working the steps, you know, and it was maybe 3 or 4 months into it, I got to step 5. And I'm doing what I think I'm supposed to do. I'm going to meetings, you know. I don't have any desire to drink. I have zero desire to drink. I can go past my old Rite Aid, and I don't care about going in. I can go and go past the liquor store. I don't have that. But I didn't realize, I didn't think I was fully engaged yet. And when I did step 4 and 5 with Mark, you know, sharing somebody your faults, I've never done that with anybody. Because, and I'll share here in a minute, I'm going on 7 years sobriety, you know. And I thought when I came in this program, Dan, all it was finding a way to put down that damn bottle so you don't fuck your life up anymore. You know, that's what I thought this whole program was. And I'm fortunate. I've strung a few days together, and hopefully I'll get another one tonight and tomorrow and 7 years and 10 years and this and that. But I've realized so far that it's not because of me. I don't take a lot of credit for being sober.
Yeah.
I don't. I finally started shutting up and listening. I finally started realizing that my opinion really doesn't matter a lot of the time. I don't have to speak to be heard. You know, there's a lot of wisdom around these rooms, and you need these people for you to stay on this path. You know?
Yeah.
And it's amazing when you just stop and slow down. The goofy acronyms you hear, now they actually make sense.
Yep.
You know? And I look at people now that I couldn't stand that first 60 days. And now they're the people I look up the most.
Yeah.
Big Jim, you know, 44 years of sobriety. I tell you how stupid I was. When he had 38 years of sobriety when I first came in my head, I'm like, I can't wait to sit there and catch up to him.
Yeah.
Well, based on my lifespan, I'm probably never going to catch up to him. But he's become somebody who's not my sponsor, but a mentor, you know? And when you and I, you know, I remember when you and I met inside of my first year, you know, I had you by a few months, you know, and you came in, I was like, he looks like a successful corporate guy. Huh, you don't have to live under a bridge to be an alcoholic, you know? And you seemed excited. You know, that was the energy is what I got from you, you know? Plus, relatively new. And we only talked a couple times in the parking lot, you know? But I remembered Dan. You know, I remember Dan. And then when I ran across, I was like, there's Dan. Man, he's always got some energy to him. You know, I liked it. And what I love is seeing people, you can tell when you finally get to that place where you're really engaged in this program. You're in it to win it, you know? And I looked at Big Jim. Quietly, he's just leads by example. You could tell he's in it.
Yeah.
In different people. But you were one that jumped out to me. I thought, he's got it. He's got the fever, man. He's in this thing.
Yeah.
You know? And he is
got
walking the
shift,
talk.
You know, similar to your story, you know, one day all of a sudden.
It did. But you know, I tell you what, I went, so there I am at the time, though. I'm sober. Mind you, I was arrested for public intoxication. I lost my job. So just because you're sober doesn't mean shit. You don't have a job. You don't have a paycheck. I'm trying to rebuild with Stacy, which is great. I thought, hey, I had started getting the recruiters calling me back because, see, when they would pull my background at these corporate level finance jobs, I'm a controller now. So, but they're going to see what's going on in your background, right? I'd get an interview and I wouldn't hear anything. And I remember life seemed to be tracking right. I'm back at a better place. I'm sober. I remember going to this company. I met with the two CEOs there, CFOs. They said, you're who we want. Eric will be following up with you in a couple of days. Expect something from our recruiter. But I thought, look at this. The pieces are coming in place, right? I'm back. I didn't hear anything for 3 weeks. And what's going on? Well, if you don't work, you don't have money. So I'm just a sober, poor guy. That's all that I am. And I started feeling insecure about myself, right? How can a man feel secure when you can't contribute?
Yep.
You know? And come to find out, even though my public intoxication charge was there, I'd filed the paperwork for it to be expunged after 3 years. It takes 60, 90 days for it to clear Frankfurt. So it was still on my record. So I rushed going in and interviewing because it wasn't on my record. So long story short, I finally get the job I'm at now, and I've been great, and life's great. But let me tell you where I failed. And I'm great. I'm thankful that I'm sober. I'm thankful that I have friends in this program that I never would have been friends with before. You know, some of the people that I'm closest to now are because of this program and the people in this program. My way of thinking certainly has changed. I'm closer to being the son I should be. I'm closer to being the father that I should be. There's more days that I do right than wrong.
All right.
You know, I love helping somebody else stay sober.
Yeah, me too.
I love it. And it's amazing. Early on, 1 year into this, Mark said, hey, guess what a year is? He goes, now it's time where you get your head out of your ass and you keep your eyes and ears open to help a fellow alcoholic. And he said, it's going to come in different waves. Might be different all the time. And I'll never forget this one kid that I'd seen come in and out a half dozen times. And one day we were leaving. It's raining outside Serenity House. And this guy's just totally different than me. And it's pouring. And I said, something says go to that guy. And I said, hey, what's going on, buddy? Where are you going? Oh, I'm going back to my halfway house. Really? Well, how far away is it? Oh, it's about a mile up the road. I'm not trying to stereotype. I said, you walking? He goes, yeah. I said, why don't you let me give you a ride? Now, 30 seconds before, I've probably told myself in my head how I'm 1,000 times better person than this guy. I don't need to sit there and interact with people like this. And we got in that car, and I'm going to tell you, it was only about 20, 25, 30 minutes. And just to hear that guy, he gave back considerably more to me than I gave to him driving him there. It humbled me to know his story.
Yeah.
You know, you see the person that weighs 1,000 pounds and you see him eating 10 cheeseburgers. We might look at them and go, put down the damn cheeseburger, right? What you don't know is their story. Yeah. They might have lost a loved one. They might have had this kind of abuse in their life. You know, we judge people from the outside without knowing the story. Yep. And I did it to this guy. Long story short, sponsor him. You know, and that's the way it works out. Yeah. 30 seconds before, I would have never given him my time. And that dominoes effect, boy, it's amazing how you sit back and look at this program, you know, big picture. But where I've failed, and I tell you this is, for me, I'm sober. I haven't gone back out. I'm very thankful for where my life is. You know, I got zeros in a bank account that I didn't have. I don't have to stress about paying this bill or that bill. I can be a father and a son that I need to be. But where I didn't use the program, I think, enough is that I thought it was just a tool to put down the bottle and not drink anymore. But what I didn't use it as a vehicle for is to look at myself and be transparent about what my flaws are. And what I realized is I'm a very insecure guy. And I'm somebody who at times, because of my insecurity, I want you to think I'm more than I really am. And it's one thing if you want to do those kind of things to yourself because you're only impacting yourself. But when you do that to the extent that you're doing that to others and you hurt others because of those things, and I didn't realize. I think what it was, I was sharing you all that, you know, had the big house on the hill, country club memberships, all the money in the world. Life was great, right? You know what I realized that I didn't realize then, but I realized in looking back, that was my artificial bar of who I was. That was my bar of my self-worth. Before alcoholism got a hold of me. I didn't realize it. You would have never heard me say anything about those things, but subliminally in my head, I equated that person as that guy. Well, where are you at today? I'm here, a little lower than that, not quite back there. So to fill that void in, I want to embellish or try to be more than I am. Because I got to fill that void, because anything short of that bar that I had from years ago before alcoholism hit, I'm a failure. I'm not good. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough in my personal life, in my relationships, you know, and I couldn't understand why. I got to a point where I would lie about things, about who I was and what I was. I'd tweak and twist it, you know. Now, I'm 5'10", blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm not 6'4" and Tom Cruise. I mean, it's pretty factual who and what you are. But somehow, some way, I wanted to tweak and twist and embellish it because I needed to cover that shortfall because of my insecurities. Yep. And I hurt Stacy. I've hurt other people because of that. And in the last 6 months to a year, I woke up and it's like, what are you doing that for? Accept who you are. Do all that you can if those are things you want. One, I realized very important. Those things aren't important. No. That bar that I made for myself doesn't matter. No one's ever asked me since I've been sober, hey, let's go back in time. Did you have this and this and this and this? No one's ever asked me that. You know, what they've come in, if it's in this program, they've asked, hey, could you sponsor me? Can I get your number? They've never asked about my bank account. They've never asked about the size of my house. Yep. They've never asked about my job title. They don't give a shit. And if they don't care about that, then I shouldn't care about it. You know, I should care about helping people like that because those type of people are the ones that help me get 7 years under my belt or attempt to be sober. So it was I felt like a failure about a year ago or so. and even more recently thinking you try to be something that you're not. And if you want to lie to yourself, that's fine. But what you don't realize, Eric, is when you've done it to a degree where it's impacted others and you've hurt others. And that's something now where I've realized the program is, for me, I want to be sober. And it's my vehicle to be sober. But I got to look pretty honest at myself. And I want to be honest about exactly who I am. Because the next person that wants to be a sponsor, when I sit there and try to work them through the steps, I think that's a big part of that. Accepting who and what you are. And let's find a way to sit there and make yourself better.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a vehicle to get sober.
Yeah.
I think it could be so much more.
Looks like and that is all our motivations when we get here. It's basically just to put that down. But it just goes so much further than that of, the truth was I had no framework for how to do life. I had zero framework for how to do life. The only thing I did was picked up what I saw other people doing, and one of my measures is what did you have? So that I would aim for having stuff. And I was also, and I think I heard you say this in different words, one of the things was I could say, 2 cars in the garage, a nice house, beautiful wife, 2.3 kids and all that. And I could say I have this, and people who have this problem don't have this stuff. And was able to lie to myself and tell myself, even though, like you said too, I believe deep inside we all know it though. When you guys spend that time in the mirror, like you said it earlier on, or real early in there about, we do know there is that knowing inside of us that says, you're not on the path, dude. You're not doing what you should do. You're not being who you should be. Well, we kind of like shake that off, It's like wet hair, you just and you just trudge right back into whatever happens to be next because I can't face that on my own. I don't have the ability to look at that. I don't.
Early on in sobriety, I remember maybe a year into it, I knew I was all in, and I loved it, and I loved the taste that I was getting of this program, and I just wanted, I want to get another bite of it.
Yep.
And but that doesn't. I tell you what's painful about sobriety is I got so thankful. I got kids that love Dad now, and I'm the same dad on Monday as I am on Thursday now. And I'm just that guy, and as best I can try to be, and I try to be the friend. I'm a consistent friend, and that's where you get back. But I tell you what is, early on in sobriety, it's really tough because I remembered somewhere around, I don't know, about maybe 60, 90 days. When you're medicating yourself with alcohol to numb all the problems and all that, the great thing about being sober is you're sober. The bad thing is, at least for me, is that I started getting clarity and the sense of all the pain that I caused. The bottle wasn't there to numb it anymore for me.
Yeah.
And the clarity of what I did. Do you realize you don't have a job, Eric? And do you realize if you don't have a job, you can't pay child support or you can't go take your daughter to Wendy's? And that's how bad it is. Yeah. Do you realize you don't have enough gas on your own merit today without asking someone to give you money to go down the street to Walmart to go shopping? Oh, don't even worry about doing that because you have no money to go shopping. And, oh, by the way, did you realize that you did some dishonest things to your mom? And you made some more choices. So that clarity gets overwhelming. And it did for me. And I remember talking to my sponsor, Mark. I said, this is about maybe, 3 months into it. I said, Mark, I don't know if I can ever get this. He goes, why? I said, how can I ever make up for all the things I've done? He goes, and one of the best quotes he had, he said, well, let me tell you this. There's not anything you've done that someone else hasn't, number one. And two, he goes, that's why we sit there and make our amends or attempt to do so. He goes, you're not always going to be accepted open armed. But he goes, what I'll also tell you is, he goes, if you allow yourself to be anchored down in the past, you'll never move forward in this program. Yeah. And it's right. And so, it's been great. But I'll tell you one cool story. And man, this is, you have these moments where you go, man, this thing's a good thing. I'm going to stick with it. I was 1 year into my sobriety. And my daughter does travel cheer. It starts in October, goes all the way to, she travels from October to May. She calls me one day on a Wednesday. She goes, hey, Dad, you know what this Friday is, don't you? I said, you got a competition this weekend up in Indy, right? She goes, yeah. And I do a lot of things with baseball at different levels. And so I'm traveling a lot myself. So anyway, I said, Yeah, you got your competition. I said, I'll get up there. I said, I won't be able to get up there until Saturday. They'll understand because I got to be back for baseball on Sunday. I got to be back here for baseball for Sunday. And she goes, no, Dad, I didn't care about that. She goes, you know what Friday is? I said, yeah, you're going up there. You have to do your all's practice before your competition. She goes, no. She goes, it's the 5th, Dad. I said, what? She goes, it's the 5th. It's 1 year. She had programmed into her phone that was my 1 year sobriety.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue. And she's done that every year since then. Huh. Now she's getting ready to turn 17. And it's as important now as a girl approaches 17 as it was, 7 years ago and approaching 10.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of talks about it, And I've told her I've apologized so many times. And I said, and I shared this with her. I said, I hope you can understand when I share this with you, Jenna Reyes, is that on my bucket list of life, when I tried to draw it out, I wanted to jump out of airplanes and have millions of dollars and be healthy and never have cancer and live to be 1,000 years of age and all that. My bucket list, like we all have. I said I never wanted on my bucket list one item to be an alcoholic. And below that, I never wanted on my bucket list to cause you pain or anybody else or be disappointed in myself. But I said, and she stopped me. She goes, Dad, I think we're closer because you're an alcoholic. I was trying to formulate those words because I don't know if we would have had some of the conversations we've had, if it wasn't for that being the reason we were talking about something.
Yep.
And it's my bond with her because of it's been pretty neat. Yeah. They're teenagers, right? Sometimes Dad's not cool. They don't want to talk to you. But some of the times we've had deeper conversations, it's tied back into something related to, my walk in sobriety.
Yep.
And it's been awesome.
Yeah.
But ultimately now being sober, I love helping people. I've got coworkers that reach out to me, and I think I got sidetracked, but about a year into it was the first time I ever was confronted where someone outside of my home, in my social circles, my workplace, and things that I'm involved with, where they said, hey, I heard that you may have an issue with alcohol. And I had the thought in my head that I don't want them to know this because look where I've got my footing back again. So now you all should look at me like I was before all this shit happened. I don't want you to know about me being an alcoholic. I just want you to know about what I look like in your eyes right now. Mm-hmm. And I thought, how foolish is that? And long story short, somebody came up. He goes, I heard through a friend of mine that you go to AA meetings. And it was kind of one of those moments where God was saying, yep, you can veer to the left. You're getting ready to screw up. Or you can dive in. You said your ass is all into this program, so let's prove it. And I remember I said, yeah, I do. Yeah, I've been going there for about 18 months. It's been great. It's been a godsend for me. How can I help you with it? Well, can I talk to you sometime? Sure. Why don't you sneak on up to my office this afternoon? Next thing you know, I'm sponsoring that guy.
Yep.
And 30 seconds before, I didn't even want him to know that I was involved, right?
Yep.
And it just is a domino effect after that. I'll tell you what, the more you give back to this program, it gives back to you tenfold.
That's pretty much a key for life in general. What you put in, you get out. This program is the highlighter of that particular thing.
It is.
Over and over again in the book, it says, when you have this problem, turn your attention to helping somebody. When you have this problem, turn your attention to helping somebody. When you have this problem, turn your attention to helping somebody.
Yep.
It's like, hold on. The answer is the same on all my problems.
It is. I remember
this is helping somebody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, maybe it ain't alcoholism today. Maybe it's helping a neighbor move a fucking pile of rock.
Yep.
Or whatever it's, what it is. But anytime that I put my precious life's energy into helping somebody else, I grow from it. I set down me, this self thing that's been the thing that's defeated me all my life. And if I put it into somebody else, then dividends come. But that ain't why you do it. But it's a, the motive is never, I'll help you, and when I do that, I'll get something from it. That's never the motive. And it doesn't come, never peaks out that way. But like after the fact, how many times I can see like problems get solved for me for this, it's like a karma thing. Whenever I do that, and I only ever see it in the rearview mirror. I never see it ahead of time. It's only after the fact you go, huh, I'll be damned. Look what happened there.
I still, I guess we all do, but I can just speak for me. You all have some level of ego and arrogance and all
Sure.
that, and as things started getting to a better path, and you're trying to recover and get your life back, there was a small part of me that thought, yeah, look what you're doing. And it's amazing when you get deeper in this program, it wasn't about what you're doing. It's about what God's doing.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. The more I took the emphasis off of myself, doors started opening.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways. Yeah, you get a job and you're doing that. Yes, you're making money. But doors would open where it was presented to me I could help so-and-so. And then, because that door is opened and you open the door for them, man, they're giving back to you tenfold. It's just the first time I ever called Mark when I was probably 90 days into it, I was complaining about Stacy. She's doing this, doing this, doing this, doing this, doing this. And and what I expected, he was going to come back and go, yeah, damn it, we need to sit here and get her ass in gear, And he listened to me for about 4 or 5 minutes, and the only word he said, he goes, I heard a hell of a lot of eyes in that.
Yeah.
And he did not tell me what I wanted to hear. Because, damn it, I just talked to you for 5 minutes. I validated why
You understand?
Yeah. And, it's kind of what you just said. Everything he comes back to, it's not about me. And I remind myself, all right, what can I do for somebody? What can I do? What can I do? Because sometimes you get into yourself, and the best way you can get out of it is just to get out of it. What can you do for someone else?
Yep.
And at times that's hard. But I'm going to tell you what, it just gets easier and easier, And the
God's
payback
gave me
is
an
amazing.
occupation where I'm doing that,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
and it's an odd dynamic of me going in and helping people. I'm fixing people's broke stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it fits that same niche, It's a different thing, but
Yep.
it is, and I'm getting paid for it.
Yeah.
So there is payback for
Yeah.
it. But that spiritual energy of helping somebody still is there, and I can feel it, and I can also feel the connection I make with these people who it's crazy, but my clients begin to be like, I walk away from those same clients. I told you earlier that I go in and I fix
connection?
somebody's stuff,
Yeah.
and I walk away feeling like I got a new friend, not a new client.
Yep. I've been around, Stacey and I have been together for, 10, 11 years. So her mom and dad have been amazing to me. They've seen me when I was the alcoholic. When I didn't have a job and she kind of let them know what was going on,
Yeah.
they never confronted me with it. They just did little things to give me some side jobs around the houses and this and that. Amazing, salt of the earth people. Her dad is about 68 years old, and he's got 2 homes, and he's renovating one. He can't do it, And I know what needs to be done, and I know how much work it is between the plumbing and new water lines and sewer system, and all this stuff. I got to do it. And it's been neat. You talk about how you get close, He's always been a great guy to me. But, I obviously don't have my dad. And I said, Stacy, he's never going to be able to get the repairs in this house done at all. So I've had to go and gut bathrooms and floors and reshore and everything. And I tell you what, I've loved it. Because it's been, for me selfishly, it's been like a replacement to not having my dad. Mm-hmm. We talk at a different level than we do. He tells me stories from way back when versus just generic BS, But more importantly, behind it, I leave there all the time going, hey, Eric, you and I both know he wouldn't be getting this done if it wasn't for you. And I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's just amazing. It feels good that you're doing it for somebody. Mm-hmm. And, man, I just love being there talking to him, knowing that it helps. And the other day I left there, and he's kind of one of these quiet guys. He's funny as hell, but he's not going to say I love you. He's not going to give you a pat on the back for anything. He's just a hard-working guy. So he comes up and kind of looking down. He doesn't want to make eye contact, And it's one of those, you can tell somebody's going to say something. They don't know how to say it. They can't get it out. And did you get something to drink, boy? Yeah, I did. So I know that's not what it was. And he goes, be careful going home. And he turns to walk away and he goes, yep, we both know I couldn't do this without you. Be careful going home. But to him, that was like a big hug someone would give somebody else, Yeah. I need you, Eric. And I left there going, Eric, there were times you were so arrogant and pompous, you wouldn't worry about helping him because you'd be so into you, And honestly, I'm still the same self-centered, selfish guy I think I always have been. But through the program, you realize that you got to tweak that, man. There's a better you in there than that. And I never made the association giving is actually giving back to yourself a lot of times, you know? I mean, it really is. I've yet to go and, I mean, not that you're right. You don't do it for anything to be paid back to. I can't remember the last time I've done something for somebody when I know it was the right thing to do and be there for them, give them my time or energy for them, that I don't look back and I'm like, hell, I feel richer now than I did before.
Yep.
You know, because of what you actually did for me. And I thought you were the one that needed the help, you know? And once you get a taste of it, man, you get that juice. It's kind of hard to, you know, you just build from it, you know? I enjoy it.
Yep.
I enjoy it.
Yep. And, you know, and truthfully and honestly, there's absolutely nothing that I derive more satisfaction, self-esteem, that fills my spirit. There's nothing more than walking somebody through this work. And in that particular thing of helping another human being, you know, because you know where you were at, you know, I know where I was at, and I know where this guy's at, and I know that he can have a new life, and you know, and ultimately that's like, you know, I get to some level, I get to change the world.
Mm-hmm. You do.
I change the world around that guy.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not doing it. That's not what I mean. We all know when we say that, that's not what it is. It's this program and God's work in people's hearts and that kind of stuff. That's what does it. But I get to be an instrument in the Master's hand and hand it off to people. And you know, there's always when you pal around these programs and you talk to people, and the people that have the juice in their life, and you can tell it. You know, you don't have to talk to them for very long at all. You'll see that common denominator that they're all passing it on.
You know, I remember when I started getting a taste of wanting to help, or I guess it was a light bulb moment. You know, at first year for me personally, it was just, I got to stay sober, you know.
Sure.
And I'm going through the steps, and then Mark says, now keep your eyes and ears open. And I didn't know, how do you do that? You know, I just didn't know. And then things just open. You just do just that. Keep your eyes and ears open. But you know, one thing, this is what really made me get clarity about, just, it's all out there, Eric. Just keep your eyes and ears open. It's there. And I remember who it was, and he said, hey, Eric, he goes, somehow we got on what our prayer life is, you know, how do you pray? And he goes, how do you pray? I said, oh, I pray every night before I go to bed, and I pray every morning before I start my day. He goes, how do you pray? And part of me was even at that, maybe 2 years sober. And I was like, who in the, what's he inquiring this? He's kind of getting a little personal. But it didn't bother. I said, why? He goes, let me tell you something that I realized that really helped me with my prayer life. I said, what's that? He goes, you don't answer me. I don't want to know. But he goes, next time you pray, think about how much time, and he goes, consider how much time you spend asking God to do for you versus giving thanks for what he's done for you. Yeah. Well, I started doing it. I started realizing I'd sit there and pray, and I would go down my laundry list. God, can you help me with this? And can you lay your hand on this? And can you help me with this? And boy, I interviews tomorrow. I'd really love to really ace that one. And can you do this? Believe it or not, the first 2 years until that time, I never said thank you to him for being sober. Never thought about it. You know, the smallest of things, you know, I never took the time to think about it.
Gratitude element.
Yeah. And I remembered here's the very next day. I did it that night. And here's how goofy this can be, is that I went from my office down at U of L, went down to the same guy who cuts my hair downtown center of downtown Louisville. And as I'm pulling up, I'm like, son of a bitch. I left my wallet or my debit card at the office. So I have no money to pay him. Right? And no sooner did I start to pull into a meter, I start realizing, hey, I used all my quarters last night at the car wash. So I don't even have any coins to put in the meter. I can probably tell him I'll come back tomorrow and pay him. But either way, I don't have anything. In 5 seconds, I get out of the car, I'm like, well, let me see if there's any time on that meter. I get up there, there's an hour and 5 minutes on that meter. I only need 30 minutes. And about that time, while I'm looking at the meter, I happen to reach in my pocket and I had $25. It's probably been in there a month. You know? My point to it is, I never would have thanked God for that, right? I didn't put that money there at that moment. I didn't put that meter with change in it. Those are the small things I never used to appreciate in life. Never did. And now I can go and I'll look for those goofy small things. And it seems for me, the more I appreciate those small things, the more energy and juice I have to say, hey, maybe you can make a moment like that for somebody else.
Yeah.
You know? And it's, you know, some days you feel like you're really impactful. Maybe other days not as much, you know. But I enjoy it. I don't have the level of sponsors you do and some others do, but through work, through baseball affiliations that I'm involved with and different things, I've had people reach out and say, hey, I heard about you and your story with alcohol. Can I talk to you? And it's been those kind of moments. And these are people that I wanted them just to associate me as this baseball guy or this successful guy over here. I don't want you to know about that because that's a bad. No, that's fine. You know that 'cause that's part of my story.
Yeah.
And if I can use that story to help you, and I love it.
Yeah. Once I started doing this podcast, any anonymity I might have thought I had
is out the window, wasn't it?
And that was a thought. You know, that was definitely something that I talked to my sponsor about, you know, that, hey, I don't know about this. And I've always been pretty open about it.
Yeah.
It seems to give me more opportunities to help people the more open I am with this, you know. And this whole thing's a practice. It's just like the practice of medicine or the practice of anything else, you know. These things, if you practice at it, it becomes a working part of the mind, as the book says, you know. In my prayer life today, and I've said this a couple times here lately, you know, everybody talks to themselves, right? We talk. We have a dialogue going on all the time. I think that's thought. You know, I'm talking about stuff, trying to figure out how I'm gonna do this or how I'm gonna do that, and I've reformatted that where when I'm talking to myself anymore, I'm talking to my higher power. You know, that's the way I look at it when I'm talking to myself, and I'm getting ready to start to do something, you know, and I'm asking God to help me figure out the best way to do this. And
that's right.
And when it goes right, you know, I go, well, thank you, you know, and I thank God for helping me get it to go right, and even if it don't go so right, I still thank Him, and it becomes, you know, a real practice, and it's a rearranging of your entire mindset of how you're going to do life, you know. Instead of beating myself up or thinking of my own abilities, it was going to get something done, tossing the credit elsewhere. And, you know, positive attitude, you know, that grows from these little successes and stuff. You know, it's another big hard thing to get with when you're working with somebody new. You know, it tends to be that they're braced for the worst all the time. And I think we manifest that. You know, if I'm bracing for the worst all the time, then that's what's going to happen to me. If I brace for the best, then but that's a mindset thing, and it's hard. It takes a lot of practice, you know, and even it's in some respect I feel like I've been sober for a while. In another respect, I feel like I've been sober just a minute, you know. And ultimately, the sober part really had very little to do with all this. It couldn't be here without being sober. But I'm unable to form those mindsets and make those rearrangements in the way that I operate if I'm fogged up under this blanket of what that alcoholism stuff does to you when you're buzzed up.
It's true.
You said something earlier, you know. It numbed the bad. Problem is, it numbs the good too.
It does.
So you can't really feel good about something when you're fogged up like that either. And it takes a lot of time, you know. Guys get, you know, feel you like you said a couple times during your story about, you know, these 90-day, 6-month periods where you feel like you really, you know, you got a handle on it 1 minute and the next minute you don't.
It does.
And how little. How long did you spend getting to this? Digging this hole I'm in, you know, and we want to be able to dig right out of it quickly. And I will now have, you know, I have actually, you know, reconciled myself to the fact that this is a lifetime thing. You know, there was a time when I thought, and I think I heard you say something similar to this too. I heard those periods of sobriety you had, you know, and we'll pat ourselves on the back for the 2 years. And whatever, if it's 6 months, 4 months, 2 years. But I would always fall back to my old stuff eventually without some kind of framework like Alcoholics Anonymous, without these 12 steps to lean on. That get my mindset around that I'm going to do this the rest of my life. One day at a time, though.
You know, I remember coming in and I remember, I mean, honestly, day one, all right, I'm sober. And I, like I say, I knew I wanted it. I knew it. Had no clue what that picture looked like. And I'm scared to death. Because, all right, I'm going to go to talk to that Mark guy. He's apparently going to be that sponsor thing, right? I'm going to ask him to do that thing. Apparently that's what you do. Mind you, all behind all this, I know I want it. I know I want this, but I can't visualize what this thing is. And so you're apprehensive. Day 30, I remember going into Rite Aid, and this is a funny, stupid story, but 30 days into it, probably would have been a day after, it was the day before I felt like God had said, hey, you're a backseat driver. It was that same few days before. I remember going into Rite Aid, didn't even think about it, pulled right into Rite Aid. I went to this place every day and got my vodka every day. Lied to Norman, the guy who was buying the cash registers, and said I was buying it for my foursome that we played golf with and we all like doing shots. Oh, it was for me, and he probably knew it by then.
Yeah.
Right? I went in there, I remember getting some mouthwash, a couple other things, right? Just normal, routine things. I went up there, he wasn't there. I paid it, and got my car. And this is how goofy this is. I get in the car. It was like one of the greatest achievements I've ever had. I just said, holy shit, you just went into Rite Aid, and you didn't even look at the alcohol, shelves, and you really got a toothbrush and a paper and something else. And it was that was one of my steps, man. Like, you're in this.
Yeah.
You're going to get it. Because I was able to do that and not even be mentally obsessed and have that compulsion to want to drink, But, let's be honest, sobriety can be tough. For me, sobriety was tougher to initiate it and start it that day one than it has been to sustain it through this last 6-7 years.
Yeah. They say it's a hell of a lot easier to stay sober.
Once you're in it,
get sober.
Yeah. And I look back, I was a walking time bomb when I went to JDAC post, coming out. It was a joke. My 2 years of self-imposed sobriety was a joke. The disease did just what it was supposed to. It was just waiting. It was just setting me up to get me.
Yeah.
The first time that I went, I was a walking billboard of how not to work the program, so it was going to get me, and
I think we have to do it wrong in order to figure out how to do it right.
And I mean, like I say, I just knew, but I look at new people coming in, and you don't you wish there was like a 30-second vignette you could show them and say, in 30 seconds, I'm going to be able to take away all your worries and concerns, because this is probably what you feel like now. Here's what you're going to feel like here, and now just envision yourself here 5 years, 2 years, 1 year down the road. But you can't do that because you just have to work that process and trust on your sponsor, trust on the program, and you have to be engaged and be ready to dive in.
Yep. You have to meet those people where they're at too.
Yeah.
I derive some joy when I hear somebody come in and they've got some trouble. Mm-hmm. Like when somebody actually has some real trouble.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing because I'm happy that they got some trouble because that's usually the motivator to get better.
Yeah, it's court-ordered sobriety.
The worst, something that tweaks me every single time is when somebody comes in and says, "I'm here for myself. I know, I'm volunteering. I'm just coming in for myself." I'm like, that's probably not going to be enough. Mm-hmm. And I understand, like what they're saying is that nobody's making me come here. But I find people are more successful if there's some pressure on their ass making them be there. A DUI. Mm-hmm. I lost my job.
Yep.
My wife's kicking me out.
Mm-hmm. And you do need those, And what's sad though? There's some people who get those, have those experiences and they go back out, right?
Yep.
But
it's no magic.
I remember hearing your story, right? Hey, I'm this engineer. I'm successful. Life's good. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. Next thing you know, I get in trouble. Next thing I got an ankle monitor. And I'm looking at some time.
Yep.
Now everybody on the outside world, if your khakis were over top of that bracelet you had on, they wouldn't know any of that.
Nope.
And they don't know the struggles going on in that head. That you're just a ticking time bomb, and life's tough, and it's getting worse.
Yeah, I'm showing up for work day after day after day, pulling my pant leg down so nobody will see my ankle bracelet because nobody there knew.
Because I'll be honest, first time I heard it, I was like, "Holy shit, that's the greatest fucking thing I've ever heard." Because from the perspective of, oh my God, that can happen to him. That can happen to me. And he looks like I do. He looks like an average guy. He's got a good job and he works and he's doing everything.
I sure as hell didn't look like the dude that I was. That Jekyll and Hyde stuff in there is really true because what my antics were behind the curtain was nothing like the persona I was putting forth to the world. You know, at nighttime slipping around, breaking in houses. And
I remember I heard that and I thought, boy, what a story he's got.
That's not, you know, if you met me anyplace else, there's no way you'd believe I was doing that stuff. And it helped me It helped me stay out of some trouble. Because I think back about how many times I got caught. I actually had there's a piece of me, the ego was trying to tell me that I was good at that. Fact was, I got caught a lot, but people took pity on me and gave me chances, and with a promise to go to rehab or a promise to fix myself, they wouldn't drop the dime on me and get me into real trouble. I think back sometimes, you know, what if they'd have got me in trouble earlier? You know, we can't guess that stuff, but I wonder. So that gets back to that thing when I say, you know, when somebody's got some trouble breathing down their neck. It gives them what I heard. There's a favorite speaker of mine, Scott Lee, says, you know, if I could give anybody anything when they walk in the door, it'd be a 500 milligrams of desperation right in the rear end.
Yeah, and, that's damn good.
When you're desperate and you're reaching for that flimsy reed like a drowning man kind of thing, that's what gets people sober.
You know, I think back then, I mean, that somewhere around 35 is when I started getting a taste that there was problems. You know,
it's pretty typical. I don't know what it is about that middle 30s to 40 range is when we.
But you know, inside of that, I was pulled over. I never got a DUI during my run. I mean, I had those two before. Yeah. You know,
same here.
But during my big run, you know, from say 35ish to when I finally got sober this time, I got pulled over twice in the same day. Hell, there was one time I know I had almost a fifth in me, right? There was one time I got pulled over within inside of 10 minutes of each other, inside of a mile of one another, and got out of both of them.
Yeah. Not
because I'm special, and I know if I would have blown, oh my Lord. Another time I got pulled over by an undercover cop in a Myers parking lot. I'm trying to leave. They came in. One guy yanked me out of my car. The other one got in the car, drove me to the back end of a parking lot with 4 other squad cars, brought a breathalyzer in. Thank God. I was right below, I think it was 0.1 at the time, and I blew like a 0.86 or a 0.96. Legally couldn't, you know. And fortunately, I had somebody just look. I look across the parking lot, there's one of my good buddies. He's leaving Myers. I said, he can take me home. I got out.
Yeah.
Could have easily been a DUI, another sip of something, you know. Those others should have been a DUI.
Or maybe 10 minutes earlier.
Oh, my Lord, I had one time with my kid. I mean, all those stories, and I think how fortunate I was to not have to experience the pain. But just what you said, I wonder would I have been sober sooner if I would have got that arrest or got whatever.
It's it's dangerous to go into those what ifs and shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of stuff. But I do think about it often. If I'd have got more trouble earlier. I got that. I had a DUI. I was 16 when I was 19. I got my third one when I was 38.
38.
So I went 19 years between my 19-year-old birthday and my 38-year-old birthday.
Jeez.
And because it gets into some of the stuff that's comes to light lately, you know, with the privilege talk and all that. I've come to grips with the fact that I had some privilege. If you had a little money in the bank, and you could hire a good lawyer, and you could pay the fees of the alcohol classes, and you could do all that, you could skate on those things and not take the full brunt of it.
True.
But if you didn't have that stuff, you're gonna. Those are the guys that end up spending time over a DUI.
Yeah.
And I was always able to do that with the privilege that I had of being fortunate in most places in my life.
I look back. I mean, I haven't
I
haven't dwelled on those, but I think about those times I was pulled over by cops. I was thinking times where I got pulled over in various parking lots by cops. What are you doing here, Stacy? Having to call cops to hunt me down.
How, you had this little thing where you would go in these public hiding spots, parking lots.
I mean, every single day during that 8 years or so, that was my whole routine. I woke up every day. I'd hunt down the bottle that was half full from the night before. Most of the time I couldn't remember it, right? Even though I put it in my magical hiding spot for the morning.
Put this someplace I won't forget.
Yeah. You know, when I got sober, I'll be honest, if I could have cashed in all those half-empty bottles and they were worth something, hell, I'd be a millionaire. I would have retired 10 times by now. But I found them, for a couple of years after. Yeah. I'd find them here and there, things you never would have thought.
I found a 35 millimeter jar full, not full, but pot just months ago.
Did you really?
Yep. In a fucking box in a closet. You know, I'm rooting around looking for something, and here's a little 35 millimeter, and we always took a lot of pictures, so I've got bunches of those little cartridges because they're good for putting out. But there's probably some sitting around here with some screws in them or something.
Yeah.
And I'm rooting around.
Don't you
I
just
see
shake
one
your
of them,
head?
man? And I look at that, and I'm like, God dang, man, it's been sitting around. And to think, too, man, how many times maybe potentially that I was jonesing for some and didn't have any. And yet I still did have some. I just didn't know where it was at.
I shared that story about my daughter, but I tell you, this is one I was about 3 years sober. And I had both kids were with me, Jenna Ray and Dalton, and then Stacy's boy wasn't with me. So anyway, we pulled up at my mom's. Jenna Ray's sitting in the front seat, and she has a stern voice, like a parent voice. She goes, Dalton, will you go in and see Nanny? I want to talk to Dad. Well, she was probably, 12 at the time, 12, 13. But it was like she was using the voice like a parent would be to discipline their kid. Uh-huh. And he gets out of the car, and she says, well, and gives me that look like, what's this? And she opens up the middle console. Well, you know those little, mind you, my drink of choice was either, most times she saw a ton of those half-pint bottles of vodka, right? Red Label, the cheap $5 bottle, the clear bottle, about yay big, with the top. Well, I had a hand sanitizer, a pump of hand sanitizer that was almost the identical shape.
Oh, yeah.
It was in the middle console. Well, how sad is it? Her immediate recollection was when she opened in there to get some money or something out of there was, he's drinking again.
Yeah.
And I opened it up and looked. I knew that's exactly in a nanosecond. That's what she was thinking. And I kind of chuckled. She goes, it's not funny, Dad. And what it did was I was so happy. I was so disappointed that she had a memory that made her think that was that. But on the flip side, I was so glad to be where we were at.
Yeah.
To where I said, do you want to take another look at that? And she goes, Dad, that really scared me. So on one hand, I caused that pain. And on the other hand, fortunately, she was at least able to have some assurance that, hey, you're not. Yep. You're still on the path.
I remember my kids coming around. When I was stumbling around in that little period between when I first came to AA and my current sobriety date, of seeing my kids' eyes when they would come in the house, and I'd divorced by now, and they would scan my perimeter, to see if there was a beer can sitting there or not. I would see them, and I would see them do that. And at the times that there was, you could see their countenance just drop.
Yep.
They're like, oh, if I could hear their minds, they were like, oh, fuck.
That's what they were thinking. And, I didn't realize my daughter.
You think they don't know?
No, you think. My son was young enough. Dalton didn't know any of that. My daughter was about 7-ish, and so she was aware, 7, 8. So she was fully aware. My son was too young to do it, so I got off easy with him relatively. But Jenna was aware, that Dad's moods change, and he's different, and he's this and that. My ex-wife gave her a hidden cell phone, and it was given to her. I never knew about it. She didn't share this with me until after I became sober. Dad, if ever you got bad, I could call Mom. And I look back, and there was a couple of times where Donna came and picked up the kids. And it's sad. I mean, we've all. Oh, I know I've done it. Friday nights, I know I have to pick up my kids, and boy, I can't put down that damn bottle.
Yep.
Can't do it.
Yeah.
And but
that's after I was sober for a while. Once I went to pick up the kids from my grandparents, and I was just in a little bit of restless, irritable discontent. I wasn't drinking, and I was in pretty good shape, really, overall. It was just one of them periods, just where it hit me, and I was a little snappy, and I was probably rushing to get them on time and all that. Probably had someplace to take them, and we were probably running late to get them there, and all that. And out of the blue, Carissa says, "Dad, do you have a meeting tonight?" And
Did he really?
It's my daughter, and it just snapped me, man. And she's 8, 9, 10 or something like that. And I don't think that she necessarily was given the message that I heard.
Gotcha.
You know,
Yeah.
I really don't know. It might just been a timing thing, and she was just wondering if with everything we got going on
Yeah.
tonight, are you also having to go to a meeting?
Yeah.
But what I heard, was you're acting like an asshole, and maybe you need to
And that's what they're saying.
Maybe you need to get to a meeting. I think that's what God was saying. I really think the little girl was someplace else, but the message was there.
Jenna Ray, like tonight, I had all the kids there at the house, and then Dalton had to go to one of his buddy's house, and then Jenna Ray had practice. I said, hey, how about we get your mom to come over here and pick you up and get you to practice? She says, you can't take me, Dad? I said, no. I said, I got something AA related. Well, what are you doing? And she actually was, she was just a meeting. She was at one of those speaker meetings, so she knows a little bit of the lingo. I said, yeah, it's kind of a speaker meeting. I said, I'm going to be the speaker, and she was, oh, really? And she actually asked, and it's just funny. 8 years ago, that kid, if you would have brought up anything AA or alcohol related, she would have been scared to death because she would associate her dad's a bad guy.
Yeah.
And he's not the guy I need for my dad. Now she sits there and is at least inquisitive enough. I said, oh, yeah. I said, somebody I really like at AA, he does this podcast thing and blah, blah. She goes, really? Where do you see it? And I actually showed her. I said, it's right on Spotify. It's right there. She goes, that is cool. She goes, you're going to be on here? I said, yeah, I'm going to be on TV. I'm almost a celebrity, Jenna. When I come home tonight, I am the shit, and we were laughing. But I just loved that she cared enough to ask, and it was enjoyable to know that same girl 7, 8 years ago, I didn't do that for her.
Yep. I know that this thing's having an impact in some directions I would have, in some directions I would have never even thought about. Some of my kids' friends listen to it.
Do they really?
And if nothing else, it's seed planting.
There's another one.
Necessarily going to prevent them from.
Oh,
doing
I'm not going to
anything,
do it because it's somebody who does it. There's another one similar, not as good. Because I listened to all yours and I've gone back
There's a lot
and
of
forth.
recovery
But
podcasts
there
out
was
there.
another one that I thought, I interchange them. But I would say when I'm in the office 5 days a week, I would say at least 3-4 days a week I'll listen to them. And I've listened to many of them many times over.
Cool, man.
I listened to the one, is it Holly?
Yeah.
I listened to that one over the other day. I'd already heard that. And then I got cut short when you talked to the women's group downtown.
When I taped myself at the women's healing place.
I said, I'll listen to that one. And for me, it's perfect.
That's one of my favorite ones.
And it's neat,
I feel like I carried the message in a very powerful way that night.
And you did your job. And you had an impact on somebody. You touched somebody.
Yeah.
Yep. You know how embarrassing it is. I remember the first time I talked. Mark said, would you come and talk to this church or this group out in Charlestown? And I talk with work. I talk to groups maybe quite a bit. It could be 20 people up to a couple hundred people. So I don't mind talking to groups of people. What I do is I'm not a paper shuffler. I go and give me the topic, and then I will go and put 2 to 3 bullet points down off that topic, and then I work from there. And I just do it from my memory. But I know that's what I'm working from, and then we'll work from there. Hey, Eric, you want to give your testimony? Sure, I'll give my testimony. As sad as it is. Now, here, think about it. All we're doing is talking about our life, right? What it was like, what happened, what it's like now. And trying to create that picture for the benefit of a new, someone chasing sobriety or someone who's got a long tenure, just trying to get back to this program. As vain as I was, I'm making bullet points. But not only the bullet points, is I want to make the bullet points to where the message that I'm sharing on each of those comes across to Dan and everybody else, so you almost forget that I'm an alcoholic, and I want you to leave the room just being overwhelmed with what an amazing person I am. That's what I wanted you to feel. And I just thought, man, you still got it, Eric. You're still vain. You're still arrogant. And it was early on in sobriety. It was maybe, a year into sobriety, and I laugh now that you even would have that thought, I came here and what I prayed today was you be 110% honest.
Yeah.
And
authentic.
Just share it because you don't know, there might be one person who's going to take the time to listen to this podcast, and if it has a little bit of an inkling to help them, job served.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a cliche in a way, but it is the truth, because if you can just touch one person, then your job is done. And,
it's true.
And every single time I know that I know that happens.
I think what you've done here, buddy, is awesome. And
it's fun.
I think it's awesome. And you're never going to have a need to chase down speakers because I would like
Yeah.
to think that it's just going to be a revolving door all the damn
So I
time.
picked the perfect niche for a podcast because alcoholics love to talk about themselves.
Oh, they do, you know? And I, the first time I came across, I'd never heard of such a thing. I would have never thought of that type of vehicle. And for me, I get my dose of AA more through this podcast than I do meetings. And I would even say that now it's changing, but during obviously the pandemic, you know. But now I have my regimen of meetings I like to go to.
Yeah.
And like you were talking, hey, how do you want to do this? You want to do it Zoom? You want to do that? And I want to sit and see, touch, and feel.
Yeah, me too.
You
I would
know?
prefer to. Thank you for doing that. You
Yeah.
know, this is the first face-to-face podcast I've had since early days in the pandemic.
Really?
Yeah, like it's you know, I've had a couple things where I've been with somebody like at a retreat or various other little things like that, but this is the first. I had to I used to keep all my podcast equipment in a Rubbermaid bin underneath the bench.
Did
I
you?
would just and I have a couple of time-lapse videos on Facebook where I would set up my camera and time-lapse it. You know, in about 9 seconds, I got this thing turned from a workbench to a podcast studio. And the stuff migrated inside on me. So when I was getting ready today, I was like, man, I sure got my podcast and stuff in a mess because I had all packed it inside, you know. And it was, this is the first face-to-face podcast in the wood shop that I've done.
Whatever gave you the gusto to do this, buddy. I know I speak for me, but for many, many other people. It's just an awesome vehicle.
Well, thank you.
It is
If you
an
listened to it,
amazing
you heard
vehicle.
at some point, it was a group of us thought, from some crazy reason, people at the Spiritual Underground thought we had something that maybe was worth sharing. And we started talking about doing a podcast, and we got together. We made a date, and we all got together at Heine Brothers over on Bardstown, Douglas Loop Heine Brothers, and there happened to be 12 of us there that day. That just showed up. Anybody that's interested in doing this, being a part of it, whatever, meet at Heine Brothers, and there was 12 of us. And we did the first couple episodes at a guy's, he doesn't want to be on here, so I'm trying to work around his name.
Yeah.
At a law practice
Yeah.
in the conference room. We did the first couple of them there, and you know there was like 8-9 people wanting to be a part of it, but really quickly. And I say this: Alcoholics got a lot of startup, not much follow through.
Yeah.
And before long, everybody didn't have time for it, and it is time consuming.
Yeah.
There's when we get done here, I'll have time that I'll have to produce this thing and put the music in and do the stuff with it and all that, and I really had a heart for keeping this thing going. And so I just kept on pushing at it.
It's impactful, Dan.
It is very vulnerable feeling to put that to the first time you got a half a dozen podcasts and you go out here on this thing and launch them and then promote it. And I don't do much of that, but you had to do some of it.
Yeah.
And to put yourself out there because we all deal with that. Who am I? There's another old cliche. It says we're an egomaniac with an inferiority complex.
Yep.
And that's true, because in one regard I'm an egomaniac, in another I'm going, who do you think you are putting out a podcast? Who are you to do that, And luckily the biggest miracle in my life is my sponsor. You talked about yours quite a bit tonight, that he would coach me and encourage me to do things like this,
Yep.
And probably without his support, this would never be a thing either, because I could never get off a zero and push out and do it. And he listens to everyone, and he's another one that's like, hey man, what's going on? But he gives me the latitude too, that if you need a break and you get last fall I had another little dry spell where I just wasn't having gas, plus I was deer hunting a lot, so it was hard to make both of those things happen. And I just don't worry about it. There was a time when I first started this, I made a personal commitment, to God and to me, that I'll put out new content every week. Once a week I will have some new content. And I did that for 18 months or maybe even longer, And I think I missed 2 weeks prior to COVID. I think there was 2 times when I didn't have something and COVID hit. And, there was a time when I'd just do a little monologue sometimes too and just talk. I'd have something to talk about, so I'd just set up the microphone and talk. And, but pretty proud of the streak that
it's
we've had.
amazing.
The feedback I get
awesome.
back from people, and
It's
I get
awesome,
some
man.
emails.
I mean, it is.
I've had guests from all over the country. That Clubhouse thing opened up. I had a big run of Clubhouse guests where I was getting people on that was a distance, and there's the benefits is it touches my heart in so many ways of what when you make a little effort to do a little more, we can all do our recovery and to each their own and how you want to do it. And that is another cool thing about AA is that, you can do this thing however you want to. But like when COVID hit and we're not standing around the parking lot after the meetings anymore and getting to know one another and new guys come in and they can't make the connection like you can when you're standing around outside of the church talking, but what guys were doing, or they were coming to the podcast and they could hear Alex's story and they could hear Shane's story and they could get to know these guys in our home group with virtually so they could make that connection that used to be made out in the parking lot. It substituted.
I miss those days. I'm not gonna lie.
Me too,
I miss those days.
But
In
I'm
fact,
also mighty complacent on the way it
that's
is.
the hell the first time I met you, because I remember I was in me. I was like, I'll say hello to him when we leave. I assumed, I can't remember those meetings. I wouldn't have known how your sobriety date unless you mentioned it during that. I just assumed maybe hey, he's got a couple years, man. I kind of want to see what he's doing.
You got a few months on me.
And so I remember that. But, it's funny, we talk about giving back and all this, and you need to keep plugging away and doing it because it's awesome. It's huge, impactful. But it's just funny, even as you get deeper into sobriety. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's not an alcoholic. And he said, hey, Eric, he goes, what are you doing tonight? I said, I'm doing such. He goes, man, what do you think about that? I said, well, the 2% ego in me, I don't want to go. He goes, why? I said, because basically for an hour or two, I said, I'm going to have to sit there and be honest about really when you want to dwindle it down, a lot of failings of our life, right? Till we recovered and started going the other way. And I said, he goes, well, Eric, but everything's great now. I said, hold on, no. Don't mislead yourself. There's nowhere in that big book says you got a perfect life. There's nowhere in there that says you're going to be financially secure. There's nowhere that says but I said, let me just tell you, the path that I'm on, it's a better life. You're not guaranteed anything. But I said, he goes, I never thought about it. He goes, so you're going to tell your whole story? I said, yeah, kind of like before, and kind of when it got bad and what it's like now. And I said, the value is really on the first half of the message sometimes, depending on, and I said, you can relate to somebody when you hear their story and their failings and all that. And then you can understand, so that's how you've grown, obviously. And I said, yeah, so there's a 2% ego. No, I don't want anybody to do it. Because I'd like for it if they sit there and mentally Google me in their mind, they want to think some great shit about me. That's what I want. Yep. I don't want them to know I lived in a car and I didn't have money for gas and I had to do this. But I said, and he goes, and this is what he said. He goes, so why you do it? I said, I'm not wasting my time and gas money over there for me tonight. I said, I'll enjoy seeing Dan. But I said, the whole goal is, and I can't speak for him, is that hopefully an hour or 2 hours or whatever this is, that there's someone out there who took the time to go in and listen to this thing. And there might be 13 seconds or 5 seconds or 2 seconds of something that was said or shared by either one of us that hits home. Yep. It kicks somebody in the ass to start getting sober, or it keeps somebody who's already sober, it keeps them on that path.
Yep.
He goes, is that why? I said, that's it. I said, I'm not getting paid to do it.
Yeah. Carry this message.
But I get paid by feeling like, hey, I hope and pray, God, I didn't make everybody fall asleep, and Dan and I did something where somebody got some juice out of it, and they're on a good path.
It's 12-step workout, fundamentally. It's carrying this message.
It is. And
we have to share our truths in our lives in order for, like I said, to make that people say, so others might identify, and another old cliche. I love all those things, and I don't mean to discount them by saying they're cliches.
Yeah.
But at some point, if you keep going to meetings, somebody's going to tell you your story, and the bell's going to go off.
It will.
And you're going to go, oh man, I did that, and that dude. And then the other thing of it is that you can see plainly that guy ain't that guy no more. And that means I can possibly not be the guy I'm being right now. That that there is a way out.
Yep, I think it's awesome.
Buddy Travis says,
your
this
form
is
you
the
had.
way.
What was the one you had maybe a month ago. You had 3 of you guys on a panel.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
You could even do that here.
Yeah.
You know?
Good.
And I thought, I don't know. And then I thought, he put that
There's
together.
a lot of different
you could
angles you can work to do
yes,
this
you
thing.
could.
Yep.
But I like that panel too. I thought that was a neat little tweak.
Shane and I come in there and I I didn't have the girl. I didn't have the permission of the girl that was asking the questions. I didn't have her permission to broadcast her voice.
Oh,
And I
okay.
had thought about that night of asking her, but I just got the gist. I just got the drift from her that probably wasn't going to be okay.
Yeah.
So I just would listen to the question and I would ask the question so that we wouldn't have to broadcast. And you could hear her a little bit. I couldn't totally sanitize her out of it, but I think I did a good enough job because there is, there's some people that won't come and do this because of the 11th tradition.
Really?
Press,
That's
radio,
what
and
they're
films.
That's what
they won't do this because this is violating that. I don't
I'm not
buy
going to
that.
argue it, but
there's a million speaker tapes out there that are that way.
Yeah.
I think as long, what I don't have a right to do is bust your anonymity, right?
Yeah.
If you tell your first name and last name, that's on you.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm publishing it with the first name, last initial, then I'm not breaking any anonymity stuff.
No.
This is just telling these stories to carry this message. But I do I am conscious, and I try to be I try to pay attention to those kind of things, like what I was saying a minute ago about the not putting other people's voices out that didn't give explicit permission to do it. But I can, I have these little, Holly bought me these little lapel mics, and they're for Christmas. And they're actually just as good a quality as these mics.
Really?
I mean, they are fantastic. So now I can, you and me could have met someplace and I could do the podcast with those 2 little mics in my telephone. And that's how I taped the one at the Women's Center. And that's the way I taped the one at the panel, the 3-way panel the other day. But see, I had all 3 panel members' permission to do that night. I said, hey, man, would y'all be cool if I taped this? And I made sure I sat in the middle.
Yeah.
And I just held my microphone in my lap.
That is
little
cool.
lav mic, I just set it in my lap, and you could pick up and hear both guys just fine.
That is cool.
Yeah, it is cool. So that gives me some more flexibility on how I'm doing this. I don't necessarily have to have the laptop and 2 mics on boom stands and all that business. So yeah, man. I got one from the retreat that I got to finish up. I have a podcast sitting from that retreat I held last month. And
I'm envious of that retreat. I'm envious of that. And anytime, what do you have, a men's retreat?
Yeah.
Is it random? How do you do it? Anytime you need somebody to fill in, you let me know, because that is a neat. That is.
It's magic. It's plain magic, man. Some stuff happens every time. Last year's was short on. We didn't have a lot of people who would come last year because of the COVID. And I had let it grow up into the 35, 36 kind of people for a little bit.
That many?
Yeah. That's too many.
Woo! Feels like it. Feels like it,
ended up
buddy.
losing the intimacy, and some things started getting drug out a little bit to where it was just too many people. But after last year, God showed me that somewhere around 15 to 20 is the right number.
Feels right. Yeah.
And so I stopped the invitations this year at that many. And I used to call it Spurt. And it was a spiritual underground retreat. That was an acronym for that. And plus it, like the growth spurt that happens while you're there.
Yeah.
And so I've renamed it this year, and because I can't open it up to the whole home group anymore, so I can't name it.
Yeah, that's tough
like
call,
that. So I kind of changed it around, and I'm getting, this is where I begin to feel arrogant and feels like I'm blowing off about it, but it's the truth, and it's just what these are the facts. Is I'm getting to have enough sponsees and grand sponsees and people I've helped that the vast majority of the retreat this year were my sponsees and their sponsees.
That many?
Yeah. We had 18. And I think 2 or 3 there didn't fit into that category.
That's awesome.
Those 2 or 3, we all shared the same sponsor. So we all got the same sponsorship lineage.
That's super.
And last year's was super powerful. like at the end circle, we're all standing in a circle with our arms around each other, crying, with tears rolling down our eyes because of how powerful this weekend was. And I thought, how do I top that? How do I match that? How do I keep that? And
You just
and
keep
I don't
the same
have any
template.
idea how I'm gonna do that. But
I don't think you have to try to outdo it.
I had to prepare it. So there's a certain element, and it's that balance. There's a certain element of preparation. And what I looked at this year, what it dawned on me was that my job is to fertilize the soil for higher power to come in and do
That's
the work.
exactly it.
And so all I had to do is spread the fertilizer.
So you don't have to outdo
And,
it.
yeah.
It's going to happen.
Yeah. And that's what that hit me this year. That really did this year.
Those things to me are powerful. I mean, I enjoy doing this, and anytime anybody would ask, I would do it. But I can just speak for me. One, someone who's got a little bit of an ego, and hopefully it's getting better all the time because I realize I'm so reliant on other people's help. Yeah, we do. And
God gave us that.
it's not nearly what it was back then. Plus, it's recognized too, and that's a big thing. Knowing what you
Awareness.
have. Yes, but that.
And mindfulness.
My family has never been, on the male side, has ever been emotional guys.
Me neither.
At all. We don't hug a lot. We don't say I love you a lot.
Same here.
And didn't do a lot of that. Now, I know my dad loved me? Absolutely. Did I know he'd do everything for me? Yes.
Same
I didn't
here.
need to do that. And I have tried to be totally different. I tell my kids and Stacy's boy Chink, right? Not my biological kid. And that's fine. I don't give a shit. Some people cannot open their arms and heart to someone that's not their biological. That is not an event to me. I love that kid just like I do my
hang
kids.
that on the hook of recovery because you wouldn't be capable of doing that without
and it's
this
not
program.
my kids. They're all my kids.
Yeah.
And whoever's with me at the time, I like you more than the other two just because you're with me. But my tie-in to it is that I'm not an emotional guy. I mean, when my dad had cancer, he lasted about 18 months, terminal cancer. We knew he had a short window to live. And I didn't cry at his funeral. That's not because I'm a tough guy. It's not because I'm a macho guy. I just don't have that. Now, when I had my final quiet time,
that's your training.
let you know, it took me almost, by the time I worked through his estate, I remember where I was at. I was actually in a bar, not drinking, but it hit me one day. I heard an old Elvis song, Suspicious Minds. He and I used to listen to Elvis all the time. It hit me. And boy, the tears flowed. On Father's Day this year, I paid a few bucks a year, and you keep where people can make comments, on the memorial and make comments about them, those who have deceased. There's 300 or 400 comments in there about him from all of his clients at his office, and maybe 2 or 3 new each year. Anyway, I was reading through them, and for some reason, mentally and emotionally, it hit me. I miss my dad, and he was always my go-to. Not the one to tell me how great I was. He wasn't that guy. But when I got my ass out of line, he humbled me. And when I didn't feel good about myself, he was always able to find those 1 or 2 small things and said, "Did you realize you might have done these things pretty well?" And he was just that guy I needed. And I miss him. Yeah. Boy, I'm sitting out in the garage by myself because I don't want anybody to see, and I can see that it's welling up. But I didn't even think I'd cry because I'm not a tearful guy. And man, my shirt halfway down was soaking wet, and I couldn't stop. My point, guys who are like that, we do want to cry sometimes, and we need to cry. We need to be honest with ourselves, And I'll leave here, and I may never cry for another 5 years. I don't know. I probably haven't cried 20 times in my life, literally. I don't have that emotional. Somebody says they have cancer, I don't feel sorry for you. From the perspective, I don't care that you have cancer. What I care about, what are we going to do to keep you healthy? Let's fight this thing. I don't have that emotional attachment that you have cancer and it's terrible. I'll do all I can to help you, but I don't have that natural extension of emotion with it. But the other day it hit me, and yesterday, I sat there for a couple hours and it just,
I'm of the opinion you really don't heal until that happens.
So when you hear these guys did that, I'm thinking, it's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And it was awesome stuff if that happened.
And it happened a completely different way this year. It's almost like fifth step material, but somebody came in and shared something really, really heavy. And the men at the meeting held the space for him while he dealt with something that was really, really difficult. And I don't think there was a dry eye around the fire. And it ended in the weekend ended in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And no way you could have orchestrated it. No way I could have formatted it to make it happen. I have a sponsor I met him on Clubhouse, and he's from Salt Lake City, and he came from Salt Lake City, Utah to come to the retreat.
Did he really?
I picked him up at the airport, and he spent the weekend here, spent Thursday night and Sunday night here, and Friday and Saturday night we spent down to the cabin. And
I'll be damned.
Yeah, some really, really, really magical stuff. He made me think about like when my mom passed, and that's what. This is my opinion of that. We're a product of our training. So if all the men were stoic and you're around you that you grew up with, that's what you're going to be.
Yep.
I mean, there's ways that doesn't happen. That's not automatic.
Yep.
But that's what's modeled for me. And the same thing with anytime I'm sitting here doing this podcast, and if you've listened, you hear me call them bell ringers, is where I relate to whatever my guest is sharing. And we weren't big physical showers of love in my family, and my mom was a little more on the love you stuff than my dad.
Yep.
And I knew he loved me.
Yep.
There wasn't any question about that. It wasn't like I felt unloved because it wasn't verbalized.
Yeah.
But then, when I grow up in that, then I end up in the same kind of business, and I remember taking note of when my dad's parents died, that my dad didn't cry. I remember that. And then like when my mom passed in 16, I couldn't cry. I couldn't cry about it. I could not fully emotionally, physically grieve it. And I wasn't able to get past it until then. And I worked with some stuff, my sponsor, and talked to him about it, and we come up with some ideas, and some didn't work. And then one time he gave me this idea of maybe go make a memorial for her at the cabin. And because this was something I realized, and it didn't give a lot of thought to it, but my mom donated her body to science and to U of L. And they give you a box when that happens if you want the remains back. And she had said she did not, she checked the box to begin with, but they give you another chance. And I could have overread that and said yes. And I understand now. I didn't understand why we had these monuments in these big fields of perfectly good ground to put these headstones.
I can kind of concur.
And I see now that's a place for somebody to go back and have that connection to that person.
Yep.
And so I made one of those at the cabin through my sponsor's guidance of a place that meant something to me. A place where I had some deep connection. And I have a place there. And the retreat just ends up being every year. Usually on the weekend, it's right around Mother's Day, and it's right around my mom's birthday. Both.
That's awesome.
And I get that, it's almost like that energy that was created, because what happened is I made that memorial kind of thing. It's really just a stack of rocks out in the woods, and but I formalized it as my mom's burial spot in my mind.
I wish I had that. My dad's not buried.
Yeah.
And
now I go there, and that day that I went, that weekend that I took that direction from my sponsor and went down there and did that, I finally sat down on my knees in the woods and cried, and I finally felt release from that grieving, that I never did grieve until then. And I have that spot I'll visit now and again, and like you were getting ready to say, if you don't have a spot for your dad, that don't mean you can't make one.
Well,
and it doesn't have to have anything to do with.
Or what killed me
some
was
special spot where y'all used to like to go or something.
When my dad, they lived in that same home for 45 years almost, and it was the field and the barn and all that. And we buried probably close to 30 animals there, between horses and cows and dogs and all that. And I can almost remember just about every one of them were. And I remember the memories, my dad and I having to, bury that animal and this and that. And that's my bonding with my dad. That was corny to some people, but to me, that was part of my life with him.
Oh, man, I understand that completely.
When I was working through planning, knowing that he had a short window those last 30 days, planning the memorial and all that, he decided to be cremated. I didn't know. I just assumed he was going to be in a coffin. And anyway, my mom has those ashes. And I know that's her connection to him. I know that. and I wouldn't take that away. But selfishly, for my dad's kids, if I had a memorial, it'd probably a public memorial or whatever, they would come in and they want to have that. And I know it probably won't happen until after my mom is not here. And they get mad at that. But I said, look, I understand her take on this. That is her bonding to him. She doesn't want to do the other. I can't push that envelope.
Yeah.
For me, selfishly, on Sunday, I thought about it. When I was sitting there crying, two things. I said, man, I'd love to go disappear somewhere and just have some time with you and just talk to you. Now, I was able to do it in the garage, and he doesn't care. Hell, he's about as informal as you get. Right. But if I could have gone and disappeared somewhere where I thought it was just him and I would have loved it. Yep. But, the emotion thing you're talking about where these guys just kind of, a lot of tears and a lot of emotion, just a little bit. I was out there, and I purposely did it where no one was around. And if you came in and opened the door behind me, my face was facing away, and I was making sure I was wiping so no one could tell, and I'm looking down. And Stacy caught on that I was crying. I bet in 10 years she hadn't seen me cry a couple of times ever, if that many, maybe not even that. And, to be honest, it was one of the first times I didn't care about covering up.
Yeah.
It felt good that day to let it out. And I haven't felt that way. I've had my kids get hurt playing sports and this and that. All right, how can we get you well? I don't have that emotional attachment. That's a terrible thing. No, let's just get you back. I don't have it. That day I did. And let me tell you what, for the first time at 50 years of age, 51 years of age, it felt good, to let it out. I haven't cried over my dad in 10 years as much as I did that day. And it just hit me.
Yep.
It makes you realize you get older, and it's all right to have a little bit of that side to you because you need it. I know the comfort I had in letting it out, man, it felt great.
Yeah.
Didn't bring him back.
Pretty easy today.
But it felt good.
Yeah.
And Stacy was...
There's healing in tears.
Mm-hmm. There is. I always, honestly, without realizing, I thought, man, these patsies, look at them crying.
Yep.
What are you
Yeah,
crying? Just toughen up, man. That's not a big deal. And you know what?
Walk it off.
Yep. I use that all the time on the ball field, Hey, you're all right. Come on, stand up. Let's walk this thing off. You're going to be good in 30 seconds. You know what? There's life issues and things that hit you personally that you're not going to be able to walk it off.
Yep.
Shed some tears. Tell somebody it hurts.
Yep. And you can change things by that too, man. And stop telling them guys to walk it off.
Mm-hmm. And
let them feel it for a minute.
And it's...
I used to be so embarrassed, man. I never did. Wasn't that I didn't cry. It's part of that training and stuff. But I can recall sometimes when I was either hurt, when I was either physically hurt,
mm-hmm.
Like in a ball game or something,
mm-hmm.
or emotionally hurt, that I did not want anybody catching me crying. And you stop that stuff up, I think that's some of what we end up with at the end of these periods when you hit 35 years old and you didn't cry enough.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that's the thing, because this whole alcoholism thing, I think, at least in my opinion, there is some genetic component. There is some, it's nature nurture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
it is.
And it's a death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing, that eventually I end up with enough personal trauma, whether if it's forcing myself not to cry when I'm truly hurt or bad things happen to me. There's been some things that's happened to me that shouldn't happen to a little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And fucking pets dying
mm-hmm.
and hurting
mm-hmm.
and not being able to release that energy, and at some point, I've got this whole bottle. We talk about TSSR. I've got a backpack I'm carrying around with
mm-hmm.
unresolved stuff.
Yep.
And it just gets to be too heavy after
mm-hmm.
a little while, and I can't carry it anymore, And what the wonderful thing about these 12-step program is it allows me to unpack that backpack and process all that unprocessed garbage that I was unable to process as it happened.
I remember, you do things in your head, you justify why you're doing something, and you think it's valid and it's right. I remember when my dad, it lasted about 18 months, I had his side of the family, my mom's side of the family, neither one of them get along, and I was what my dad always was. My mom was never accepting to my dad's side of the family. My dad, his kids, my mom's kids considered him dad. He didn't care who you were. Mm-hmm. You were his kid, and he was there for you. My mom didn't reciprocate that. So there was always this. So when my dad's kids would come in, it'd always be a conflict because of my mom. He's now, on his deathbed. He's not going to be with us much longer. So I filled that role. Eric's having to take care of everything, organize everything. And I saw my mom's kids cry a lot. I saw my mom cry a lot. I saw my dad's daughters cry a lot. I never cried once during that time. And it was not because Eric's a tough guy or a badass or anything, but at the time, my clear thought process was they are going to follow the beat of my drum. Mm-hmm. If I break down here and take on that this is horrible and terrible and blah, 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 that's going to make it tougher on them.
Yeah,
and in my head, I was thinking, I'm making it better for you by not doing that. In retrospect, I look back, there were times I saw those people crying, and I would come and support them. I wanted to cry too, but I thought if I did, that it would really just blow it up and make it what is a bad situation feel even worse. I don't think I was right now when I look back. I don't know if I was wrong. I'm not saying I was right. I don't know. I know Sunday I was sitting here reflecting back on that, and I thought, man, I wish you would have done this before. I wish you would have done this over the last 10 years. I don't care if it's once, 10 times, or a million times in that period. I think if it felt deep good as a release today, man, I wonder what it would have felt like, the first 30 seconds. Or, and even when I was there by myself, knowing that, hey, we only have another day or two of this, and I have one-on-one time with him, and he doesn't know I'm there, obviously, but I'm sitting here, man, I was dying inside. It didn't formulate and show itself in tears, but now I realize, man, there's some importance in that, to let it go. There's nothing wrong with it, at all. And it's taken me a long time, to even think that's okay, and it felt good. It also felt good to see somebody else see that, because to me, step one was, I'm letting go of these tears, man, this feels awesome. I'm not going to tell anybody. I don't want anybody to see this, but it feels pretty cool. I feel like a weight off my shoulder. And when she walked out, then I immediately went back into what's now. Oh, I don't want her to see that, so we got to play this off. And in a nanosecond, it was like when I did my fifth step with Mark. I didn't want to do it, but something nudged you to do it. And man, the release and the sense of accomplishment of finally doing that, doing what you knew was right, and it gave you so much release. When I did that, I was like, man, it's okay. And mind you, this is coming from a guy that I just got done saying a little bit ago that I realized that in this program I failed by not accepting who I really am. And I didn't need to let her think I'm something that I'm not. It's okay to say you hurt. It's okay to realize you're not a tough guy. You do have emotions. Yep. And you can let them see that, and not try to cover up and portray you're something you're not. Because what I was at that moment, I'm a damn 51-year-old guy who wants to cry because of this. Yep. And I want to let it go. And if you want to sit out here with me, you're going to see it. A year ago, I probably would have done the same damn thing I did. I wanted I had my picture in my box of who I wanted to be. I wouldn't want you to see that.
Right.
Because that wasn't that successful picture there hanging on the wall. Yep. And you could tell she was, surprised that she saw that.
Yeah.
And we talked about it a little bit later that day. She goes, how'd that feel? It's fucking awesome. Felt good.
It's the gold standard in healing, man.
And
tears are in my opinion, that's this gets a little awesome. Funny, and I'm hesitate talking about it, but like when I'm working with new guys, man, if you can crack that egg mm-hmm. to where some tears get shed, mm-hmm. you can watch how that impacts them long term in their recovery. That mm-hmm. they're able to, like during a fifth step, mm-hmm. or get people to really allow themselves to allow myself to be seen crying. Mm-hmm. Is one element of it, that vulnerability that can happen mm-hmm. when it happens. And then the other thing is that there really is some kind of release, some kind of physical release, like those tears are attached to your heart. Mm-hmm. And when you allow them to come out, it actually has a healing effect on your heart.
Stacey always said, she goes, Eric, you have zero empathy. And I've always been told that by many people. Yeah. And I tried to say that a few minutes ago, is that if someone said, oh, my daughter broke her leg, I don't have any emotional attachment to that. I hate that happens.
Yeah.
Do you need me to help get her home from school because you're at work? Let me help her there. Whatever I can do to help. But right. I don't have that emotional attachment. And she goes, you just have no empathy at all. And again, and you know what? She's right.
Yeah.
She is right.
Ask yourself, is that who I want to be?
And now, you know, I'm not saying shedding a few tears on a Sunday morning makes you empathetic. It doesn't. But I think there's some blend of those between emotions.
That direction, though.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't want to shout this out to the world, but it did feel good, you know. And I don't know if I want to do it again tomorrow. I don't know if I want to do it on Wednesday next week. But if it
I don't want
does,
to turn out to be some sobbing, crying.
Yeah, but you know, there's got to be something between what I've been, you know, and crying every moment.
Yep.
And it did. It felt good.
The middle.
You know,
someplace in the middle.
It is, and
that's the symbology of this.
But you're right. When you have your sponsees, and you can really, as best you can, guide them to just being 100% transparent to you.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much deeper this program can work your life. But if you try to sit there and keep your core kind of covered up, and you just try to work this program around the periphery of this, you're never going to get the juice out of it.
That's what I mean about those tears. Show me that somebody's cracked the inside. You know, we made it to the core of that person.
Yeah.
And and then the bond that gets built because of that, and the trust that you can hold the safe space for somebody. You know, I have a little pet peeve about, like, when you're in some situation and somebody starts crying, and somebody first rushing to find a box of Kleenexes to give them. To me, what that says is, stop crying. You're making me uncomfortable.
I would agree.
And I don't get you a box of Kleenexes. Mm-hmm. If you say grab me a tissue, I'll jump up and do it. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to come over there and bring them to you without your asking for it.
You're crying for a reason.
Yeah,
let it go.
Yeah. Because otherwise, what you do is you watch that. Pay attention if you're in a situation like that. Somebody starts crying. When they get handed a box of tissues, they will stop.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you're right.
You know, it's a premature stoppage.
Mm-hmm.
They should be allowed to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Get that out. Feel it.
Is.
You know, that goes back to that cliche too of in here. You know, one good things about getting sobriety back or getting sober is you get your feelings back, and the bad thing about
you get your feelings back. Yeah. That scared the hell out of me, I'll be honest with you. You talked about it a little bit earlier. The clarity you get, you go and you medicate yourself, and that's what we all do, when you're in the madness. You're just medicating. Oh, a little bit of pain. Oh, shit, I got the solution right here in that bottle. So we do it, or it's a drug or whatever. And then when you get engaged in this program and you're chasing after it, all of a sudden, man, the clarity of what you did, man, it hits you. And it can be heavy.
Yep.
I've hurt my kids and my mom and my better half and my partner and this and that and the other. But there's a lot of power in that too. Because once you accept what you did, hey, now how are we going to rebuild from this?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And it's that scared the hell out of me. That probably by itself was the single part of this whole process up to now that almost drove me back. I'm not saying I want to go back and drink.
That's why we lose so many people on the 4-step.
Yep. And I'll be honest, I was like most people. I went and did the 4-step, and I go through and I did my first 3 or 4 columns, and I'll never forget. I thought I got the ultimate screw job from my sponsor, because he said, "Oh, by the way, now we got to wrap this up by doing the last column. I want you to put your part in each of those resentments." Well, I thought, hell, the 4-step. I thought, hey, what this is, I thought it was my time to beat these people up and justify all the wrong in which they provided to me. And it's amazing when you sit there and look at the big picture. What part did you play in that?
Yep.
Yeah, they were part, but so were you. And I wish I would have taken that and did what I referenced earlier about how I failed in the program. I wish I would have ran with that part of that 5th step or the 4th-step right there and realized, let's continue this on. Not only what impact did you have on those situations, now let's go deeper into you, Eric. If you played that part in those situations, what things do you need to fix in you? I would have realized sooner that I'm an insecure guy. No one would ever describe me as an insecure guy in my social circles, family, or whatever, I don't think. And you know what? What y'all don't realize, guess what? I'm insecure because of these issues.
Yep.
And I don't ever want anybody to know that.
Yep. Because at my core, what truth is I'm still the 12-year-old little boy hoping to not be picked last on the side of the kickball field.
That's exactly it.
But I don't want anybody to know that.
Yep. It is. Yeah, you need to keep doing this, buddy, because it's powerful.
Well, thank you, man.
It is powerful.
It's powerful.
We should probably wrap it up. Although I get on these rolls, and sometimes the the person tells their story, and that's the best part of the podcast comes during the conversation. But what I do invite is if you got any final thoughts or any concluder. I took that from one of my favorite podcasters. Maybe whatever, anything that's on your heart that you want to say.
No, I tell you, the biggest thing I'd say is for everybody who's listening to this podcast, if you think you're doing as much as you can in this program, you can always do more.
Yep.
Keep your eyes and ears open even more.
Yep.
I think we all get into our, in life, inside of the AA, trying to chase sobriety, we all get into our ruts and routines, And whether you're a retiree or you're working 80 hours a week, I think there's always somebody out there that you might have the impact by giving your time that everybody else has tried to reach out to somebody, but you might be the one person who can do it.
Yep. Complacency kills.
Yep, it does. But no, I appreciate you letting me share a little bit and keep doing this, Dan, because I'm going to tell you what, it's powerful and it helps.
Man, I can't believe that didn't happen before now. That's an old habit. That used to be such a regular thing in the podcast. People made fun of me because at some point the compressor was going to kick on.
Kick on sometime?
And it took a long time for it to kick on today. Yeah, well, thank you, man, because I do enjoy doing it, and it really is something that's in my heart to continue doing. And the other little spur off of is that some other people have started podcasts, getting their voice heard since I started doing mine.
Awesome.
And Holly's got a podcast now.
She ran with one?
Yeah, she's got a podcast for her solo date challenge thing, and we sit down and taught her how to do it, and now she's off and running with hers. And I have a sponsee that does a podcast that's based on true events, BOTE, and they talk about stuff that's not really up my alley, but to each their own.
Really?
They do kind of like the darker side. They have podcasts about murderers and
other
stuff. Yeah, it's not really up my alley.
Yeah.
To each their own. He's having fun doing it, and they're doing it. And
he may reach somebody in his own unique way.
I'll say and it doesn't have anything to do with recovery. I don't think he even mentions it in it, but I do this little commercial for Anchor every time, and I've truly believed this, let your voice be heard. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a story, and everybody's story is valuable.
Mm-hmm. It is.
And people come in here all the time thinking their story is not, I don't really have there's not too much. Like, no, man, everybody's story is valuable.
What do they always say? The right voice, sharing the right message at the right time.
Yep.
And that's how you impact somebody.
Sure is. Well, cool, man. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed this evening. It's been fun. These podcasts always are fun. I always have a tough time winding down off of them, too, at the end when I go in and fold it up. And some nights I start producing the thing right off. I've said this before on here, too. I know that I should never plan anything directly after this because of the emotional output that happens. I'll need to come down. Mm-hmm. I'll have to.
I can see that.
I'll hit a wall, and I'll be jacked up for about a half hour, and then boom, I'm done. So I'll end this one in the same way I end every single podcast. If you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault. And thank you all for allowing Eric and I to participate in our recoveries in this manner today. Peace out.